Hello everyone, welcome to DevOps real-time project. My name is Kastro Kiran. If you are turning into this channel for the first time, I highly recommend you to check out my DevOps project playlist where I have covered various real-world scenarios step by step where you can understand the different projects and their complexities available in the projects as well. Additionally, I have already created a Docker playlist which is Docker Basics to Brilliance course, which takes you from the fundamental concepts in Docker to the advanced level of concepts in the Docker, along with 4 mini projects also discussed in this particular Docker course as well. Make sure to explore this particular playlist also for your better understanding on Docker. Coming to today's video, in this video, we are going to show how to deploy a Book My Show clone application on the Kubernetes cluster and making it access by using a load balancer URL. But before we dive into the hands-on part, I will walk you through the different stages of the CI/CD pipeline script, which will help you to understand the complete deployment process that I am going to follow in this particular video. So firstly, we will have the code in the GitHub repository, and this GitHub repository will be integrated with the Jenkins, where inside the Jenkins, I am going to integrate the different tools. The first tool that we are going to use is the Sonar Cube, where we are going to perform the code quality analysis. And once we perform the code quality analysis, then we are going to perform the deep level scanning by using a tool called OWASP. Once the OWASP tool file system scanning is completed, then we are going to use another tool which is called as Trivy. By using Trivy, we are going to perform the file system scanning. Once this is done, then we are going to create the Docker image. Once we build the Docker image, then we are going to create the Docker container. And by using the application that is running inside the Docker container, we will see whether application is performing better or not. And once we do this, we are going to configure the email notification as well. So this is the part 1 of this project. Now in the part 2, the same application which is deployed into the Docker container, we are going to deploy into the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, we are going to deploy into the Kubernetes cluster. And once we deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster, we are going to monitor the application by using Prometheus and Grafana. So these are the different stages that are involved as a part of this particular project. So let us go to the AWS console and let us see how to work with this entire project. This is the GitHub repository of our application, where inside this repository, you can see the different files that are available. 2 files which are related to Kubernetes, that is deployment.yml file and service.yml file. And 2 Jenkins files also I have kept. I'll be explaining you about these 2 files in some time. And here is where our application source code is available. So you can see the different files that are available. Along with this, you can also see the Docker file that is also here, right? So, and along with this repository, I'll also be uploading the entire notes that I am going to follow along with the commands which I am going to use in this particular project. So you don't have to bother about the commands that I'm going to execute. I'll be giving you this entire documentation in a detailed way in the GitHub repository. The link to the GitHub repository is provided in the description of this video, right? Currently, I'm there in the AWS console, especially the EC2 service. So if you want to go to the EC2 service, you can see in the search bar, and in the search bar, you just type EC2. And if you click on this particular thing, and you will be directing to the EC2 console. Now here, what we will do is, we will follow the basic setup that we are going to do it for the application deployment. So here first, we are going to launch one EC2 instance. So let me click on launch instance. And for this project, I am going to use the same region, which is called as North Virginia. So whatever resources that I am going to create, all the resources I'll be creating in the North Virginia region only, because that will help me to create the resources in a proper way. Even when you are practicing also, make sure you are going to create all the resources in the same region so that the communication between the resources will be happening in an easiest way. Right. So the name to the server, I'm giving it as a BMS-server. So you can give any name to the server. So I'm just giving it as BMS, which represents a Book My Show, because that is the application that we are deploying now. So for that reason, I'm giving it as BMS. And here I'm going to use the Ubuntu instance. So I'm just selecting the Ubuntu here. And the latest version of AMI I'm going to select, which is AMI 24 8.04. That's the latest version of Ubuntu AMI that is currently available. And once we do this one, then we are going to work with the instance type. As we know that T2.micro, though it's a free tier eligible one, we cannot use for the application deployments because we need to install different things. Let's say we need to install Jenkins, we need to install Kubernetes, we need to install AWS CLI, Docker, SonarQube, everything we have to install in the same instance. So for that reason, what I will do is I will provision all the resources in the same EC2 instance. So for that reason, I'll be going with T2.large instance. So when you select T2.large instance, you are going to get 2 CPUs with 8 GB memory capacity. So that's the reason why I'm going to select T2.large as the instance type. So the next thing that we are going to work is key pair because that is used to connect to the instance. If you have any existing key pair, you can select it by clicking from the drop down. Otherwise, you can click on create new key pair and you can give name to the key pair. So I'm just giving the name to the key pair as Kastro. You can give any name to the key pair, but remember, this name is very, very important when you are giving your own names. So I'm just giving it as RSA and the type is .pem because by using PEM file, I'm going to connect to the instance. So let me click on create key pair so that the key pair will get downloaded into the local system. And then the network settings, I'm not going to change the network settings. Let it be the default network settings. We will configure the networks in some time. And here the storage capacity, I'm going with 28 GB, but make sure you are configuring the storage capacity less than 30 GB to be in the free tier limits. Right, with this configuration, I'm going to select the number of instances as 1. So let me click on a launch instance so that the instance will get launched. Now, once the instance is launched, the next thing what we are going to do is we are going to open some security groups for the EC2 instance. So let me show you what are all the security groups that I'm going to launch to, that I'm going to enable to this instance that we have created. If you just reload the page, you can see the server that we have created. Now what we have to do is we have to enable certain kind of ports for the EC2 instance that we have created. So let me select the instance and then let me go to security, and inside security under security groups, you can see a link. So just click on this link. Here is where we are going to enable couple of inbound rules. So let me click on edit inbound rules, and here we need to add some rule. So let me click on add rule, and here the first rule that we are going to use is SMTP, which is used for mail communications. Let's say once I trigger my Jenkins pipeline, automatically whenever the build fails or whenever the build success, I need to get an email notification. So for that, this particular SMTP server is helpful. And the second thing that we are going to use is custom TCP, which is a TCP. Here the protocol is TCP, and the port range that I'm going to use is between 3000 to 10,000. This is the port range that I'm going to use. Because in these port ranges, we have Grafana server port, we have the Jenkins server port number, we have a couple of others like SonarQube port number also. So I'm just going to enable the ports between 3000 to 10,000. And then I'm going to give it as anywhere IPv4, add rule, and then let us go with HTTP also, and also HTTPS as well for secure connections also. So let me click on anywhere and add rule, click on HTTPS. So select HTTPS for secure protection and anywhere IPv4. And the next thing that we are going to do is the TCP protocol, which is for 6443. I'll let you know what is the importance of this particular port number in some time. And the last one that we are going to use is the SMTPS. So let me go with SMTPS also. That's also for the mail communication when you trigger the Jenkins pipeline. So I'm just go with anywhere IPv4, add rule and custom TCP. And here I'm going to enable the node port numbers. Usually when you are working with the Kubernetes, we have the Kubernetes service, which is called as node port service. And when you are working with node port service, you need to enable the port numbers between 30,000 to 32,767. The reason is node port service will automatically give some random port number when you work with node port as a service. So here, however, in this session or in this video, I'm not going to work with node port, but for our better safety, I'm just going to enable the node port number as well. So let me click on save rules. So these are the different inbound rules that I have added for my EC2 instance. So you can see there are 8 different inbound rules here. Now let us go and connect to the EC2 instance. So in order to connect to the EC2 instance, we are going to use the public IP address of the instance. So just select the instance, copy the public IP address, go to MobiXterm because this is the terminal that I am going to use to connect to the instance. And then click on SSH, and then here click on session and then SSH. And in the place of remote host, paste the public IP address of the instance. And username, by default, the Ubuntu instances will have the username as Ubuntu, and the Linux instances will have the username as EC2-user. But since in our case, we have launched Ubuntu instances, the username will be Ubuntu. Click on Advanced SSH Settings, use private key, select this file icon, and then select the PEM file that we have created while launching the instance. So select the PEM file and then click on Open and then click on OK. So with this, we are successfully connected to the EC2 instance. So once after we connect to the EC2 instance, the first thing that we have to do is we have to update the existing packages. So I'm just going with sudo apt update. So here apt is the package manager for Ubuntu instances. So let me update the existing packages. Once the packages are executed successfully, then we are going to install the different aspects for the server. So the first thing that what we are going to do is we are going to work with the installation of Jenkins, SonarQube, and Docker. So let me work with that one. So here what I'll do is instead of executing the commands one by one, what I'll be doing is I'll create shell files. I'll create a shell files. And inside these shell files, I'll write the commands that are required to install the respective tools. So for that, I'm going to execute finally the shell file so that all the commands, whatever we have kept inside the shell file, those commands will get executed. So first, let us go and install Jenkins. So vi jenkins.sh, that's the file name I'm giving. So let me click enter and go to the insert mode. And as I said earlier, I have given the complete documentation. This documentation, I'm going to upload it in the GitHub repository also. The link to the GitHub repository is provided in the description of this video. We will talk about how to create the EC2 how to create the EKS cluster, how to create IAM user and all those things in some time. But before that, let me install the tools here. Right. So this is the file name jenkins.sh. You can give any name to the file. Since I'm installing Jenkins, I have just given the file name as a Jenkins. Right. So copy all these commands which are required to install JDK, that is Java 17 version of the software. Along with that, we are also going to install Jenkins as well. Right. Once you keep everything here, press escape :WQ, come out of the file. Now, if you do cat space jenkins.sh, you can see whatever commands that are there inside the Jenkins file, you are able to see it here. Now, by default, whenever you create the shell files, they will not have the executable permissions. So we have to explicitly specify that executable permissions. So for that, the command is sudo chmod plus x. X represents executable. And for which file you want to give the permissions, give that file name. Right. That's done. Let me press ls. And here you can see earlier the sh file is not having the executable permission. Now the sh file has got executable permissions. Now, how will you execute a shell file? /file name. /file name jenkins.sh. So that what will happen is whatever commands that you have kept inside the Jenkins, all those commands will get executed so that the Jenkins installation will be successful. Right. Once the Jenkins installation is success, we will verify what is the status of the Jenkins. So in order to verify the status of the Jenkins, we have a command which is known as systemctl status Jenkins. So let us execute that command. And as I said earlier, we are also going to install Java software also. So in the same file, I have already kept the command to install Java software also. So let us verify both Java software and also the Jenkins status. So Java space -- version, and you will see 17th version of Java has got installed. Okay, 17th version of Java has got installed. Right, you can see it here. Now, let us verify the status of the Jenkins. Sudo systemctl status Jenkins. That's the command to check the status of the Jenkins. Now, if you see active and running, that means your Jenkins is up and running. Now here, if you want to come out of this one, just press Ctrl+C in your keyboard. so that you will come out of it and you can execute the rest of the commands. Right. So currently we have seen how to install Jenkins. Now let us access the Jenkins. Let us access the Jenkins. In order to access the Jenkins, we know that Jenkins will run on default port number, which is 8080. So let me copy the public IP address of the instance. Let me go to a new tab, and in the new tab, paste the IP address and give 8080 because that's the default port number of Jenkins. Just press enter. We have already opened the ports. If you remember, I have opened the ports between 3000 to 10,000. 3000 to 10,000. So in these 3000 to 10,000, we will also get 8080. So that is why we are able to access Jenkins. Otherwise, you can explicitly open 8080 port number in the security group, and you can work in that way as well. Okay, right. Now, in order to unlock the Jenkins, we need to get the administrator password. So this administrator password will be available in this path. So I'm just going to copy this path and go to the mobile XM. And here I want to see the content inside a file. I want to see the content inside a file. So I'll go with sudo cat. So cat is the command to see the content that is available inside a file. So just press enter so that you will see the administrator password. So this is the administrator password. Copy this entire password, go to the mobile, go to the Jenkins, paste it here, click on continue, and now it will ask you to install the suggested plugins. By default, Jenkins will ask you to install some plugins. So let me click on install suggested plugins so that whatever the default plugins that are available, all those default plugins will get installed. Right. So let these things takes place, after which what we will do is we are going to install a Docker as well. Okay, we are going to install Docker as well. So now, in order to install Docker, I'm going to create one more file, which is called as docker.sh. Right. Before that, let me give the username. I'll give it as Kastro. Password I'm giving. Confirm the password also and give the full name, and I'm giving the email ID also. So make sure to give all these configurations, which is for admin user. So click on save and continue. And now you are ready to access the Jenkins. So click on save and finish and start using Jenkins. Now our Jenkins is ready. Okay, our Jenkins is ready. So we'll come back to this one in some time. Okay, we'll come back to this one in some time, because here in Jenkins, we have to install plugins, we have to configure tools, we have to add credentials. There are multiple things that will come up here. So we will talk about this one in some time. So the next tool that we are going to install is Docker. So for Docker, also I'm going to create a shell file, which is docker.sh. So inside the docker.sh file, I'm going to keep all the commands that are required to install Docker. So these are the commands. So just copy all these commands and execute and paste it in the mobile XM, that is .sh file, so that whatever commands that you are keeping, all those commands will get executed. So I'll just paste it here and then click on OK. Right. Now press escape :WQ to come out of the file. Now, if you do cat space docker.sh, you can see the content available inside the file. Now, if you do ls, as I said earlier, by default, the sh files, the shell files will not have the executable permissions. So if you want to get the executable permissions, the command is sudo chmod +x and then give the file name. Right. Now, if you do ls, you can see docker.sh file has got executable permissions. So how will we execute a shell files? /filename, /filename, so that Docker will get installed. Okay, Docker will get installed. Now, once the Docker is installed, we are going to verify whether Docker is successfully installed or not. Okay, whether Docker is successfully installed or not. So for that, we have a command which is docker space --version. Okay, docker space --version. So let me execute the command docker space --version. So you can see the Docker version that is currently available. Right. So let us try to pull the default image. So Docker pull, let's say I want to pull an image called hello world image. So let me execute it. Now you see it is asking me, it is telling me that permission denied. Docker is installed successfully, but you are unable to pull the existing images. So here, if you are unable to pull the image, we need to give necessary permissions for that. Now, to give the permissions, we have a command which is called a chmod command. Okay, sudo chmod and then 666. That's the permission number that we need to work with, and the path. So the path is /var/run/docker.sock. Now, once you give this one, then the permissions are available. Now you can pull the image. So let me execute this command. You can see Docker image has got pulled. If you execute Docker images, you can see the default image that we have just pulled. Make sure this particular command is very important to run. Otherwise, if you don't run this one, it is not possible to work with Docker. Right. So I don't want this default image. Let us remove this default image. The command is docker rmi, the image name. So rmi represents remove image. So if you do Docker images, you don't see any images now. Right. So let me clear the screen. Now, since the Docker has got installed successfully, the next thing that we have to do is we have to connect with Docker Hub. We have to connect with Docker Hub. Why Docker Hub is important? Because when we create the image, we are going to push the image to the Docker Hub. Okay, we are going to push the image to the Docker Hub. So for that reason, what we are going to do is we are going to integrate Docker Hub with my EC2 instance. Okay, with my EC2 instance. Now, how will you integrate a Docker Hub with the instance? The command is docker login -u represents username. So your Docker Hub will have a username, right? So give that username. So my Docker Hub username is Kastro V. That's my Docker Hub username. Press enter. Now, when you press enter, it will ask you to enter the Docker Hub password. So just type the Docker Hub password, whatever you have created for your Docker Hub account. But remember, when you are typing the Docker Hub password, you will not be able to see that. Okay, by default, Linux will not allow you to see that. So once you type the password, just press enter. And if you have typed the correct password, it will tell you login succeeded. Login succeeded. So with this, we have successfully connected to the Docker Hub from my EC2 instance also. Right. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to install Trivy. So what is Trivy? Trivy is a file system scanning tool. So I'm going to integrate Trivy also as a part of this project. So I'm just creating a file called trivy.sh, and the commands to install the Trivy tool I have already given. So just copy all these commands and then paste it in the trivy.sh file. And finally, you can execute the trivy.sh file. Just press escape:_WQ to come out of the file. Now, as I said earlier, by default, the shell files will not have the executable permissions. So let us give the executable permission. Sudo chmod +x, the file name. Right. Now, if you do ls, you can see trivy.sh file has got the executable permissions. So let me execute the Trivy file. So /file name. You can see Trivy is getting installed here. Now, once the Trivy gets installed, we can also verify whether Trivy has got successfully installed or not. The command is Trivy space --version. Let me execute that. Trivy space --version. So you can see Trivy also got installed. So far we have installed Jenkins, we have installed Docker, and we have installed Trivy as well. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to perform the code quality analysis. Okay, we have to perform the code quality analysis. So in order to perform the code quality analysis, we need SonarQube for that. So in order to set up the SonarQube, I will take the help of Docker. So in my server, currently Docker is already installed. Okay, in my server, Docker is already installed. You can see the Docker commands are being shown here, right? So now let us install SonarQube by using Docker. So I'm going to run the SonarQube container, that is docker run -d -name. So here SonarQube server name, I'm giving it as a sonar, and -p that represents port mapping. And SonarQube will run on a default port number, which is 9000. So I'm going to map host port number with container port number. And the default SonarQube image is SonarQube :LTS-community. SonarQube :LTS-community. The LTS means latest image. It is going to pull the latest image. So let me press enter, and you can see SonarQube image is getting pulled. So since SonarQube image is getting pulled, SonarQube container will also be running. So let us see that once installation is successfully done. Right. Now, if you do Docker images, you will see the SonarQube image. You can see that here. Earlier, we didn't have this image. Now you can see the image is available. Now, since we have created the image, the container will also be available and the container will be related to SonarQube. Okay, SonarQube. Now you can see some container got created 17 seconds ago and the status is up. That means you can use the SonarQube. So as I said earlier, SonarQube is running on which port number? 9000 port number. That's the default port number. So let us access the SonarQube as well. Okay, let us access the SonarQube as well. So copy the public IP address, go to a new tab. In the new tab, paste the IP address and then 9000. So again, 9000 port we have already opened. If you remember, I have opened a port number 3000 to 10,000. Okay, 3000 to 10,000. So in between these port numbers itself, we will have the SonarQube port number also. So let me go here and let me press enter. Now, once you press enter, by default, it will ask you to enter the username and password of SonarQube. Only if you enter a login ID and password, then only you can access the SonarQube. The default username and password is admin. So admin, and then click on login. Username and password both are admin only. So make sure to enter that one. And now SonarQube will ask you to enter a new password, to create a new password. So I'm just giving some password here. So you can give whatever password you want. Let me click on update and that's done. So with this, our SonarQube setup is also successful. Okay, our SonarQube setup is also successful. Now what we are going to do is we are going to work with creation of EKS cluster. Creation of EKS cluster. Now, in order to create the EKS cluster, we should not create the EKS cluster by using root user or by using root account. So what we have to do is we have to create an IAM user. For that IAM user, we have to attach the required policies and then we have to configure the AWS by creating the access keys and secret keys. Only then we can create the EKS cluster. Only then we can create the EKS cluster. So right. So first what I'll do, I'll go to the IAM console. In the IAM console, go to users. And here I'm going to create one user. Create one user. Currently, I don't have any users. So let me click on create user. And here the user name, I'm giving it as EKS-Kastro-user. Any name can be given. So I'm just going with this name. So provide access console. And I want to create an IAM user. Custom password. You can type the password, whatever that you want. So I'm just typing the password. And I'll uncheck this one, where the IAM user cannot create a new password. Okay. And then click on next. And here, don't attach any policies. We will attach the policies once we create the user. Just go with the default ones. Don't select anything here. So let me click on next and then click on create user. So with this, we have successfully created the IAM user. So what is the username? EKS-Kastro-user. That's the IAM username. So let me click on view user, continue. And here what we will do is we will attach some policies to the IAM user. Okay, we will attach some policies to the IAM user. So once you open the user, here you can see permissions. In the permissions, you can see add permissions. So click on add permissions here. And here is where we are going to attach the policies directly. So select attach policies directly. And here I'm going to attach some policies. So the first policy that I'm going to attach is EC2 full access. Because in order to create the EKS cluster, it needs EC2 full access permissions because it is going to create the worker nodes. So for that, we are giving EC2 full access. Along with that, IAM full access is also required because we are creating the EKS cluster using IAM only, right? So IAM full access is also required. And apart from these, we also need to have Amazon EKS. Okay, Amazon EKS CNI policy. Amazon EKS CNI policy. This is the one. So once we do this one, the next thing which we have to give is Amazon EKS cluster policy because it has to work with the cluster also, right? So I'm just going with Amazon EKS cluster policy. So select Amazon EKS cluster policy as well. And then it has to work with the worker nodes also. So I'm just going with the worker node policy as well. So don't go with the worker node minimal policy, go with complete worker node policy. And whatever resources that we are creating with respect to EKS, they will be created by using CloudFormation service. CloudFormation service. So here I'm going to give the CloudFormation full access permissions also. CloudFormation full access permissions. Right. So total 6 policies we have attached. You can see it here and then click on add permissions. Now, once we have added all these permissions, we have to create one more policy for the same user to give EKS permissions as well. So for that, what we will do is we will create an inline policy. So again, open the user that you have created, permissions, and here add permissions, click on create inline policy. Once you create that, select JSON here. Whatever the default policy that is available, delete that policy. And in the documentation, I have provided the policy that you have to give. So this is the policy. Copy this entire policy and paste it here. So what is this policy about? It is about EKS, that is Elastic Kubernetes Service. Complete permissions we are giving. Scroll down, click on next. It will ask you to enter the policy name. You can give any policy name. So I'm just giving it as EKS inline policy. Any name can be given to the policy. It's up to you. And then you can see complete EKS permissions we are going to get. You can see EKS full access. So click on create policy. So with this, we have attached 7 policies for the IAM user that we have created. You can see total policies 7. Now the next thing that we have to do is we need to configure the AWS. So in order to configure the AWS, we have to create access keys and secret keys. So whatever the user that we have created, go to that user, and here you can see security credentials. Scroll down and click on create access key. Currently, we don't have any access key for this user called EKS Kastro user. So let me create an access key. So click on create access key, select command line, because we are going to work with commands only, right? So I'm just giving it as a CLI use case, and then acknowledge it, and then click on next. Tags, if you want, you can give it. Otherwise, they are completely optional. So let me click on create access key. Now you can see this is the access key and this is the secret access key. By using these two only, we have to configure AWS in the EC2 instance that we have created. And remember that if you reload this page, these access keys and secret keys will no longer be available. So for that reason, for safety purposes, you just download the CSV file. Inside this CSV file also, you will have the access keys and secret keys. So let me open the CSV file. You can see it here. And in this file, we will have the access keys and secret keys. And by using these access keys and secret keys only, we are going to configure the AWS in the server that we have created. Right. Now, this is all done. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we have to create the EKS cluster. Now, in order to create the EKS cluster, first we need to install CLI. AWS CLI. So in order to install AWS CLI, I have already given the commands here. So just copy all these commands and create a new .sh file. So I'm just copying these ones. I'll just copy all these ones and I'll just keep a new file as aws.sh. Go to the insert mode, paste the commands, and then press escape :WQ. Now, cat space aws.sh, you can see the commands are there which are required to install the AWS CLI. Now, first we need to give the executable permissions, sudo chmod +x aws.sh. Now, you can see it got executable permissions. Now, in order to execute a shell file, the command is /aws.sh, so that the AWS CLI will get installed. Once it gets installed, we can see whether AWS has got successfully installed or not. For that, we have a command which is called as AWS space --version. You can see the CLI version that got installed, which is the latest one. Right. Once we do this one, the next thing that we have to do is we need to configure AWS. So in order to configure AWS, the command is AWS configure. Press enter. Now it will ask you to enter the access keys and secret keys. We have created the access key and secret key, right? So copy this access key and then paste it here and then click enter. Once you click enter, it will ask you to enter the secret key also. So copy the secret access key, paste it here, and then click enter. Now region name we have to give. As I said earlier, I'm going to work with North Virginia region. For North Virginia region, the region code is US-East-1. So if you want to know how to get the regions, you can see in the dashboard, click on this drop down, and here you will see the different regions. If you are also creating the resources in the North Virginia region, you can use the region code as US-East-1. If you are using any other regions, let's say you are using Mumbai region, so the region code you should give it as AP-South-1. So make sure to remember this one. So since I'm going to create all the resources in the North Virginia region, I'm going to follow the same region code, which is US East 1, right? So give that and then press enter. So the output format, you can either give JSON or you can also give table as well. So let me go with JSON as the output format, right? So with this, we have configured the AWS also. Now we need to install the kubectl. We need to install kubectl. Why? If you want to interact with the Kubernetes, it is mandatory to have the kubectl. It is mandatory to have the kubectl. So I'll just create a new sh file, that is kubectl.sh, and then press enter, go to the insert mode, and I have already given the commands to install kubectl. So copy all these commands, paste it here, and then press escape :WQ. So the reason why I'm creating the sh files is I don't want to execute all these commands one by one. So instead, what I'm doing, I'm creating a shell file and I'm keeping all the commands inside that shell file, and I can execute directly the shell file. When I execute the shell file directly, what will happen? Whatever commands that are there inside this shell file, all those commands will get executed. So that's the reason why I'm creating shell file. So sudo chmod +x and then shell file name kubectl.sh. Right. Now, if you do ls, you can see kubectl.sh file has got executable permission. So let me execute it /kubectl.sh. You can see kubectl also getting installed. Once the kubectl gets installed, the next thing that we have to do is to install EKSCTL. Why it is required? If you want to create the EKS cluster, it is mandatory to install EKSCTL as well. Once we install the EKSCTL, then we will create the EKS cluster. So without doing all these configurations, it is not possible. Okay, you can see the EKS client version, that is version 1.19.6. That's the version that got installed. So let us install EKSCTL also. So I'll just create a shell file EKSCTL.sh and then go to the insert mode. And here I have already given the commands to install EKSCTL as well. So let me paste all these commands here and then press escape :WQ. Now, as I said earlier, it won't have the executable permission. So let me add the executable permission for the EKSCTL.sh file also. Let me execute the file /EKSCTL.sh. So that what will happen? EKSCTL version has got installed. Which version? 0.203.0. That's the version, right? So with this, we have configured all the required things in the instance. Now we have to create the EKS cluster. So if you want to create the EKS cluster, we have a command which is called as EKSCTL create cluster. Let me show you that command. You can see it here. EKSCTL create cluster. And here I am giving the cluster name as Kastro-EKS. You can give any name. So I'm just going with my name here, Kastro EKS. And I want to create the resources in which region? North Virginia region. So for North Virginia region, I have the region code as a US East 1. If you are creating in any region, you can give the region code whatever you want. And I want high availability for my cluster. So I am going to create 2 availability zones. I'm going to spread the resources across 2 availability zones. If you want to spread across multiple availability zones, you can do that also. Okay, you can do that also. Right. I'm going to use the EKS version as 1.30. Currently, we have 1.32 that is running at the time of recording this video. So I'm just going with 1.30 because 1.32 and 1.31 are the latest versions which might have the compatibility issues. So for that reason, I'm going with 1.30, which is a stable version. And I'm not going to create the node group. That is worker nodes I'm not going to create. Explicitly, we will create in some time. Explicitly, we will create it. So when you execute this command, what will happen? A cluster called Kastro-EKS will get created. So let me paste all these commands here. And before executing this one, let me go to the EKS service. Let me go to the EKS service. So just go here. I'll open EKS in a new tab and we will verify whether we have the cluster or not. Cluster or not. In which region? North Virginia region. You can say I'm there in the North Virginia region and I don't have any clusters currently. Right. Now let me execute this command, and if you execute this command, the cluster will get created, but it will take at least 10 to 15 minutes to create the cluster. It will take at least 10 to 15 minutes to create the cluster. So you have to wait for 10 to 15 minutes at least. Once the cluster gets created successfully, then we have to install the utilities also. EKS utils, we'll call it as. So we'll install this. So what I'll do is I'll pause this video. Once it gets installed successfully, then I'm going to show you whether cluster got created or not. After that, we are going to work with the EKSCTL utils as well. So meanwhile, what we will do is let us configure the different tools in the Jenkins. Okay, let us configure different tools in the Jenkins. So first, let me go to Manage Jenkins and let us install the plugins that are required for the job execution. So go to Manage Jenkins. Under System Configuration, you can see Plugins. So click on Plugins. And here is where we are going to install the required plugins. So click on Available Plugins. So the first plugin that we need to install is Pipeline Stage View. So this particular plugin will allow us to see the stage-by-stage execution. And the next one that we need to install is Eclipse Terminal Installer. This particular plugin will help us to select the version of the Java. So if you have multiple versions of Java for your project, you can select the required version when you have this plugin installed. The next one that we are going to go with is a SonarQube, because we are going to work with SonarQube also. So I'm just going with SonarQube Scanner. And our application is a Node.js application. So I'll just go and install the Node.js plugin as well. And we need to work with Docker as well. So I'll just install all the Docker related plugins. That is a Docker, Docker Common, Docker Pipeline, Docker API, Docker Build Steps. So all the Docker related plugins I'm going to install here. And the next one that we need to do is, as I said earlier, we are going to perform the deep level scanning as well. For that, we are going to install OWASP, okay, which is going to perform the deep level scanning. And remember, this particular stage, when we are executing the pipeline, it will take at least 40 to 45 minutes. So for that reason, we are going to have this plugin installed and it will take time. Okay, make sure of that. So I'm going to install OWASP file system scanning also, or OWASP dependency check also. After that, we are going to install the extension email, that is email extension template, which is used to get the emails as well. So select email extension template. After that, we need to work with Kubernetes deployment, right? So I'm going with different Kubernetes related plugins. One is Kubernetes Client API, Kubernetes Credentials, Kubernetes, and then Kubernetes CLI and Kubernetes Credentials Provider. Kubernetes Credentials Provider. So make sure to install all of these ones. All of these ones. Kubernetes, Kubernetes CLI, Kubernetes Client API, Kubernetes Credentials, or Kubernetes Credentials Provider. If you don't install this one also, nothing will happen, but make sure to install Kubernetes Credentials. That's important, right? And then since we are working with Kubernetes, we need to work with config file. Okay, config file. So let me install that plugin also. That is a config file provider. There is a plugin called config file provider, which is for Kubernetes. So I'm installing config file provider also. And we are going to monitor the application. So if you want to monitor the application, we need Prometheus as well. So I'm just going with Prometheus metrics also. So these are the different plugins that we have to install for the job that we are going to create, or for the application that we are going to deploy. So click on install here, and you can see all the plugins will get installed. But here, when Prometheus is getting installed, okay, when Prometheus is getting installed, it will ask you to restart the Jenkins. Okay, it will ask you to restart the Jenkins. So make sure to restart the Jenkins. But how will you restart the Jenkins? Here directly you have an option which is called as restart Jenkins when installation is complete. So you can see Prometheus plugin does not support dynamic loading. Jenkins need to be restarted for the update to undertake or to take effect. So let me click on the restart here so that Jenkins will get restarted automatically. Okay, Jenkins will get restarted automatically, upon which we have to log in back again to the Jenkins, and then we can work with the Jenkins. Okay, we can work with the Jenkins. So let me check this one so that Jenkins will get restarted. You can see Jenkins is getting restarted here, right? As soon as Jenkins gets restarted, we have to again enter the username and password for the Jenkins. So when we are configuring the Jenkins, we have created a username and password, right? So the same username, whatever you have given there, you have to give the same username here as well. Okay, let us do that. So let me sign into the Jenkins. The username is Kastro and the password I have set. So let me click on sign in so that you will be logging in back to the Jenkins again. So let me, this URL requires post. So let me retry using post. Right. So it is all done. If you want to see the list of plugins, you can give installed plugins here, and you will be able to see all the plugins, whatever we have installed. By default, some plugins will also get installed. But if you want to see the plugins that we have installed, you can see Prometheus metrics we have installed, Docker related plugins, you can see all of these things, and pipeline stage view. So that's also the plugin that we have installed. So you can see the pipeline stage view plugin also. Okay, pipeline stage view plugin also. You can see it here. Let me just show you that here. Pipeline stage view. Okay, so these are the different plugins that are installed. You can see that pipeline stage view, right? So all the plugins has got installed successfully. Now the next thing that we have to do is we need to configure the tools. What are the third-party tools that we are using? We are using a SonarQube, we are using a Docker, and we are working with the email also. Right. So first, let us go and work with the SonarQube. So let me go to the SonarQube dashboard. And here in the administration, so click on administration, and under security, you'll have an option called users. So click on users. Here we have to create one SonarQube token. So in order to create the token, you can see there are 4 dashes here. So click on this one so that you will be able to create your own token. So token name, I'm just giving it as a token only. Any name can be given. So I'm just giving it as token, name as token. Expires in how many days will it you need to work with token. So in real time, what we will do is we'll give it as no expiration because the projects will have a long run. But since it's a practice case scenario, I'm just going with the minimum days, that is 30 days. And then click on create or click on generate so that you can see the SonarQube token. This SonarQube token, we have to configure in the Jenkins. Okay, let me go to the Jenkins dashboard, manage Jenkins. And if you scroll down to security, under security, we have the option called credentials. So click on credentials, and here you can see global. So click on global here, and here is where we have to add the credentials. So click on add credentials. And here for SonarQube, I'm not going to configure with username and password. We are going to configure with a secret text. So let me click the kind secret text, and the scope is global secret. So what is our secret? We have just generated the secret text, right? So copy the secret text, go to the Jenkins dashboard, paste it. And here the name, that is ID. These IDs are very, very important when we are working with Jenkins pipeline. So I would recommend you not to change these IDs, but if you change the IDs for any of the tools that I am going to configure, you have to change the same thing in the pipeline script also. Okay, So I'm just going with SonarQube ID as sonar-token. Okay, sonar-token. And the description also, I'm giving it the same thing. That is a sonar-token. And then click on create. So with this, we have successfully configured the SonarQube with Jenkins. Now, we need to push the image to Docker Hub also, right? So we need to configure the Docker Hub credentials as well. So let me click on add credentials, username with password, because Docker Hub will have an username and password, right? So I'm just going with username with password. Scope is global. Username, Docker Hub username we have to give. This is my Docker Hub username, and password. You have to give the Docker Hub password. So let me give the Docker Hub password and ID. Okay, ID for Docker, I'm giving it as a Docker, and the description also I'm giving it as a Docker, or you can give it as Docker creds, which are Docker credentials only, right? Remember, ID is most important. Description, you can give anything. ID is most important, right? Let me click on create. So with this, we have successfully configured the Sonar Cube and Docker tools in the Jenkins. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we need to have the Sonar Cube webhooks. Sonar Cube webhooks. So in order to create the Sonar Cube webhooks, let me go to the administration. Let me go to the administration. Under configuration, you can see webhooks. So click on webhooks because we need to tell where Jenkins is running, right? Because from Jenkins only it will get the code quality analysis. So we have to tell to Sonar Cube where Jenkins is running. So for that, we need to configure the webhook. So click on create and here name. Since we are working with Jenkins, so I'll give it as Jenkins and URL. So which URL you have to provide? Jenkins URL you have to provide. Okay, Jenkins URL you have to provide. Now, if you go to Jenkins dashboard, this is my Jenkins URL, 8080, up to 8080. Copy everything, go here, paste it. Go here and paste it. And once this is done, in the end, what you have to do is Sonar Cube, okay, Sonar Cube hyphen webhook, Sonar Cube hyphen webhook. This name you have to give, right? Let me click on create here. Make sure this is most important. If you don't give this one, it won't work. It won't work. And then in the end, you have to give slash also. You have to give slash also. That's also most important. So click on create. So with this, Sonar Cube webhook is also created. That means whenever Jenkins is going to trigger the job, it is going to give the code quality analysis by connecting with Jenkins. So how Sonar Cube will get the data? By using Jenkins only. That's why we have configured the Sonar Cube webhook. Right. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we have to configure the system. The Jenkins system we have to configure. So we are working with JDK, we are working with Node.js, we are working with OWASP. All these things we are working, right? So we have to configure them in the Jenkins system. So how to configure them? Go to Jenkins, manage Jenkins. In the manage Jenkins, you will see an option called tools. Okay, you'll see an option called tools. So click on tools here. And here we have to configure the different tools. So the first tool that we are going to configure is a JDK, that is a Java Development Kit. In order to work with the Jenkins, we need JDK, right? So I'm just configuring JDK here. So our project is also developed by using JDK only, that is Java only. Okay, Java only. Right. If you want me to show the GitHub repository for the project, so I'll just show you the GitHub repository and I'll show you how the project also got created. I mean, by using which programming language. So you can just type bookmyshow. The link to this repository is also provided in the description of this video. You can verify that. And if you scroll down, you can see this is developed by using JavaScript. So that's why we need to configure Java also. So click on add JDK. We have installed which version of JDK? JDK 17. JDK 17. So I'm just going with JDK 17. Any name can be given, but remember these names are also very important when we are executing the pipeline script. And then click on install automatically, add installer, and I'm going to select with the adoptium.net. So why this adoptium.net is coming? Because we have installed a plugin called Eclipse Temurin Installer. Only if you install that plugin, you will see this option. If you are not installing that plugin, you will not see this option. Why this option is helpful? If you have different versions of Java in your project, you can select the appropriate versions. So I'm just going with Java 17.0.8.1 plus 1. You can select any version. This is the latest version in 17. So I'm just going with this particular version, which is a stable version. So 17.0.8.1 plus 1. Right. The JDK is configured successfully. The next thing is we have to configure the Sonar Cube also. So click on add Sonar Cube and here name, Sonar Cube scanner name. So you can give the name as Sonar-scanner. Sonar-scanner. That's the Sonar Cube name, server name. And then version, I'm going to select the latest version only. Okay, you can select the other versions also, but latest version is stable. I have already checked with the different projects. So you can go with the latest version itself. Okay, and then the next thing that we have to do is a Node.js installation. Node.js, because our project is a Node.js application. So click on add Node.js and Node.js. We are going to go with the latest version of Node.js. What is the latest version of Node.js? Node.js 23. That's the latest version. So I have given the name as a Node 23. Node 23. And then scroll down. Here we are working with the dependency also, right? OWASP dependency check. So click on add dependency check. Tool name. tool name, I'm giving it as dp-check. Okay, dp-check. Remember, these names are very, very important. I'm repeating these ones because they are very important when you are writing the pipeline script. And then click on install automatically. Click on install automatically, and then click on add installer. And here, install from github.com. So directly it will connect to the GitHub and it will go and check with github.com. So the latest version is already stable version only. So you can go with the latest version. Otherwise, you can choose the next latest versions also. Right. So I'll just go with the latest one, which is 12.0.2. And the last one that we have to do is a Docker configuration. So click on add Docker, name. I'm going to give it as a Docker only. Name, I'm going to give it as Docker. And here check install automatically, add installer, and install Docker from docker.com. Right. Latest version I'm going to select. So with this, all the tools, whatever are required, we have successfully configured. So click on apply and then click on save. Click on apply and save. So what tools we have configured? We have configured JDK, we have configured SonarCube, Node.js, OWASP dependency check, and finally the Docker. Right. So this is the configuration that we have done, system level configuration. Right. Now we need to do one more configuration, which is for SonarCube. So I told to SonarCube where Jenkins is running. Okay, I told to SonarCube where Jenkins is running. But the same thing I have to tell to Jenkins also, where SonarCube is running, where SonarCube is also running. So for that, go to manage Jenkins. Under system configuration, you will have system. So click on system. Here you will see an option called SonarCube servers. SonarCube servers. So let me go that here. Okay, SonarCube server. There we need to tell the where SonarCube is running. So SonarCube servers, you can see it here. Scroll down, you will see SonarCube servers. Here click on add SonarCube, and name. You can give any name. So I'm just giving with the sonar-server. But remember, again, I am following these notations because I am going to show you the pipeline script accordingly. I have written the pipeline script accordingly. So for that reason, I am giving the same names, whatever I have incorporated in the pipeline script. Right. So server URL, SonarCube is running on which URL? So that URL we have to give it here. Make sure to give it only up to 9,000. Don't give slash in the end. Don't give slash in the end. If you get slash, just remove that one. You can see the syntax here also. Okay. Don't give slash in the end. That's not required. Right. So server URL, I have given it as SonarCube server URL. That is where the SonarCube is running. And once you do this one, just click on a Sonar authentication token. So here we have configured a token already, right? That is sonar-token. Select that one, click on apply, click on save. So with this, we have also configured the SonarCube in the Jenkins. Okay, SonarCube in the Jenkins. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we have to integrate email. So I need to send the email notifications, right? So I need to get an email notification. So for that, we have to integrate email in the Jenkins as well. So as soon as the build happens, I need to get an email notification. So for that, we need to configure the emails. So let me click on manage Jenkins. In the manage Jenkins, if you scroll down, you will see an option called security. So here, what we have to do is we have to add the credentials. So click on add credentials. And here click on global. And then click on add credentials. Now, here, which one you have to select? Either username with password or secret text. That's most important to understand. Now, before that, whether it is username with password or secret text, you need to have the secret. Otherwise, you can also go with username with password. So let's say you want to get an email notification to a particular user, particular email ID. So you can give that email ID here. And you can give the email ID password also. But it is not good to configure the email ID password directly in the Jenkins. So instead, what we have to do is we have to configure it as a secret text. So for that, what we have to do is go to your Gmail. Okay, go to your Gmail. And once you go to the Gmail, you will see the profile icon. Okay, the Gmail icon you will be able to see. So here you can see the Gmail icon. Click on the Gmail icon. And here you can see an option called edit Google account. So click on edit Google account. And in the left pane, you can see an option called security. make sure the two-step authentication or two-factor authentication is enabled. If you see this tick mark, that means your two-step verification is success. Okay. If this is not there for your Gmail account, make sure to configure this one. If you just click on this one, it will ask you to enable the two-step verification. Just enable that one. Once you enable this one, in the search bar, just type app password. Just type app password. Here, click on app passwords, and this is where we are going to create the secret text. So click on continue. It will ask you to enter the password. So enter the password of your email, and then here is where we have to create the secret text. So already I have created one text. So let me delete this one. It's not required. So app name, we are working with Jenkins only, right? So let me give the app name as Jenkins. Any name can be given. So I'll just go with Jenkins. Click on create. Now you can see the secret text is ready. This secret text you have to configure in the Jenkins. But before copying this one, before directly pasting it this one, copy this one and go to the note, and here just paste it anywhere. In your notepad also, just paste it anywhere. So once I paste it, what you have to do is remove the spaces between these things. Okay, remove the spaces. That's most important. So people often miss this one. So remove the spaces between the characters. So copy this entire one. Now go here and then go to Jenkins. In the Jenkins, which one I have to select? Secret text, because I have generated a secret text, right? So go to secret text. Okay, go to secret text, or you can go with the username and password also. That's not a problem, because however, we are not going to give the password of our Gmail. We are going to give the secret text, right? First, let us go with the username. That is kastrokiran@gmail.com, because for that email only, I want to get the notifications. So I'll just give that email. Okay, in your case, you can give your email ID. Password, paste the thing. Okay, paste the ID. We have generated this one, right? App password. So copy this one and make sure to remove the spaces. That's most important. After removing the spaces, paste it. And here, ID, I'm going to give it as a email-creds. And the description also, you can give the same thing. That is email-creds. And then click on create. So with this, our email credentials are also successfully done. Configured. Now what we have to do is we need to get the notifications, right? So for that notifications, we have to configure the email in the Jenkins. So click on manage Jenkins. Under manage Jenkins, you can see system here under system configuration. Click on system. And if you scroll down here, you will see an option called email notification. Okay, email notification. So let me do that by using Control F, email notification. Let me check. Yeah, not extended email notification. Okay, let us go with extended email only first. And here, SMTP server. The SMTP server name is smtp.gmail.com. smtp.gmail.com. That's the SMTP server name. Okay, smtp.gmail.com. And then click on port number. We have to give the port number as 465. 465. That's the port number that we have to work with. 465. And then click on advanced. And here, credentials. We have configured the credentials, right? So click on that one and you can see email credentials. So select the email credentials. And here we have to select a couple of things. One is use SSL, that is SSL certificate, and use OAuth, that is O authentication. Right. And with this one, the next thing that we have to do is the default content type. So how you want to get the content, mail content. So I'll give it as HTML. Okay, HTML. And scroll down further. And here we have to give one more notification, which is called as email notification. And here also the SMTP server name is smtp.gmail.com. smtp.gmail.com. And default user email suffix. Okay, default user email suffix. So you can leave this one blank, it's not required. And then click on advanced. And here we have to go with use SMTP authentication. And here the username is the email ID. So whatever email ID that you want to get the notification, give that email ID. Password, we have generated the app password, right? This password you have to paste it here. But remember, spaces has to be removed. So I'll just copy this app password and I'll paste it here. And then once this is done, check use SSL because we are going to work with SSL certificates also. And SMTP port, again, it is a 465. That's the default port. Reply to address. So to which email I want to get the notification? Give that email ID also. Give that email ID also. And char set is UTF-8. That's a default one. You can go with this one. And once this is done, if you want to check whether your configuration is proper or not, check this box, test configuration by sending email, and then give the email ID. And here you can see test configuration. If you have configured everything successfully, you will see email sent. You can see email was successfully sent. If you want to see the email, just go to your Gmail. Okay, just go to the Gmail, and then let me show you the test mail also. Let me show you the test mail also. You will be receiving the test mail. It may take some time sometimes, but usually you will get the test mail. You can see the test mail is ready. Test mail is ready. So you can click on this one, and here you can see this is test mail from Jenkins. Right. So like this, you are going to get the email notifications once after the job is built. But if you want to get that one, we have to enable one more option, which is default triggers. There is an option called default triggers. Let me show you that. Default triggers. So just go with the search bar. You can see default triggers. Here, click on add, click on this drop down. And I want to get the notification every time failure. Anytime whenever the job gets failed, I want to get the notification. And also whenever the job is success, I want to get the notification. You can check these three options so that you will get the email notifications accordingly. And then click on apply and save it. Click on apply and then click on save it. So with this, we have successfully configured the email as well. Now, one last thing that we have to work is we have to install NPM. We have to install NPM, Node Port Manager. So let me install the Node Port Manager. So in order to install, you can see the cluster got created. So if you want to verify, just go to the EKS console. Okay, just go to the EKS console. Let me go there. And here you can see currently there are no clusters. Let me reload this one. And you can see the Kastro EKS cluster has got created. You can see the status is active. Which version? I have created 1.30. So that's the same version that got installed. But again, remember here only cluster got created, not the node groups. So if you want to see that, go to Kastro EKS cluster, go to compute. In the compute, you don't see any node groups. So that means worker nodes are not available. So we have to create that worker nodes. We will do that in some time. But before that, let me install npm here. The command is sudo apt install npm. Sudo apt install npm. Let me click enter so that the npm will get installed. Right. So we have created the EKS cluster. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to associate that with the IAM OIDC provider. So let me copy this entire thing and let me execute it here directly in the mobile external. So once this is getting installed successfully, then we are going to execute that command. But the reason why we are executing this command is by using this particular command, we can set up the EKS cluster. Okay, we can set up the EKS cluster because it is going to enable IAM roles for service accounts. IRSA means IAM role for service accounts. Along with that, it is also going to help us to use OIDC, that is OpenID Connect, to authenticate Kubernetes service with IAM roles. We have created an IAM role, right? So for that role, it is going to be helpful. Along with that, there are also a couple of other ones, but these two are most important to remember. You can also verify these ones when you are practicing the work. So I'll just copy this command and then I'll go here. And once this installation is done, then we will work with this one. Okay, let the installation gets completed. Right. So I think so far everything is going good with all of you, and you are also able to understand what I am exactly telling about this particular project. Right. So now let us install npm also. So make sure to follow the video till the end. Only then you will understand how I am working with different tools. So kindly don't skip anywhere. If you feel like you know a few things, you can skip it their parts. But most importantly, if you skip it, you may miss out few things which I was talking about. So make sure to watch the video from the beginning till to the end. So if you have come this far, that means you are showing too much interest, which is very good. Right. So let me install that one also. That is EKS utils. Utils means utilities. So here again, one thing that you have to give is you have to provide the region, because I'm working with this one only, which is North Virginia region. For North Virginia region, the code is US East 1. And my cluster name is this. In your case, if you are creating the cluster in different region, you have to give that region accordingly. And if your cluster name is different, you have to give the cluster name accordingly. Make sure to do those changes, right? So once we do this one, it is done. The next thing that we have to do is we have to execute. Okay, we have to execute this command in order to create the node group. So here, EKSCTL create a node group. So for which cluster it is going to create the node group? For this cluster. So this is the cluster which I have. Okay, the cluster name, if you see, this is the cluster name that I have. So in your case, whatever is your cluster name, you have to change that name accordingly here. And my cluster is available in US East 1, node 2. And then this is a name, node name, worker node name. And worker nodes will have the instance types as T3.medium. Remember, worker nodes are nothing but instances only. And desired worker nodes, I need 3, minimum is 2, maximum is 4. So when you execute these commands, how many worker nodes will get created? 3 worker nodes will get created. With which capacity? T3.medium. That's the capacity, right? And node volume size is 20 MB. And this is most important. Now, when you are creating the server, we have created a BMS server, right? Book My Show server. Okay, BMS server. When you are creating this server, you have created the PEM file. You have created the PEM file. So if you want to know the PEM file, just scroll down, go to the details, scroll down, and here you will see the PEM file name. You can see it here, PEM file name. Whatever is the PEM file name, give that name as it is, with capital letters, small letters, everything as it is. You have to change this one. So in my case, the PEM file name is a Kastro. That's the PEM file name. If you want me to verify once again, you can see it here. Capital K and rest are all small. You can see the same thing here. In your case, if you have different PEM file name, you can give that name also. And the different other permissions I have given. When you execute this command, what will happen? The node group will get created, and that node group will have 3 worker nodes. 3 worker nodes. So let me press enter, so that the node group will get created. Make sure to do the changes accordingly. The cluster name, okay, 3 things you have to do the changes. One is cluster name, region, and instance type. You can change the instance type also. You can change the node name. Desired is 3, minimum 2, maximum 4. And this is most important, which is SSH key. Okay, when you are launching the server, whatever key that you have used, the same key that you have to provide it here, right? So this will also take a couple of minutes of time. So let us not bother about this one. Let it get created. Now we are good to go and create the job in Jenkins. We are good to go and create the job in Jenkins. Now, if you verify in my GitHub repository, I have kept 2 Jenkins files. I have kept 2 Jenkins files. You can see it here. Okay, this is my application. You can see Jenkins file 1 and Jenkins file 2. So what are these? First Jenkins file will have the script without the Kubernetes deployment. Without the Kubernetes deployment. If you want me to show, you can see it here, Jenkins file name, and you can see without Kubernetes stage. And the second Jenkins file will have the code that is related to Kubernetes stage also. So as I said earlier, this entire project has been divided into 2 stages. First stage is without Kubernetes, we are going to deploy the application into the Docker container. And once we deploy the application into the Docker container, we are going to verify whether that container is accessible or not. I mean, the application running inside the container is accessible or not. Once we are sure about this one, then we are going to deploy into the cluster. So let me explain you the pipeline stages one by one. So pipeline, agent any, and tools. So here I'm going to use the third-party tools, right? So I'm going to give it as a JDK. So I have configured JDK tool name as JDK 17 and Node.js tool as Node 23. So whatever names you have configured in the Jenkins, the same names you have to give. Similarly, SonarQube scanner also, I have given it as sonar-scanner. Okay, that's why I told you, whenever you are configuring the tools in the Jenkins, whatever names I have given, make sure to give those names so that you don't face any error. If you want, you can customize those names also, but here in the script also, you have to customize accordingly. All right. So the first stage is about cleaning the workspace. If there is any existing workspace, it will clean the workspace. And then it is going to get the code from GitHub repository. The code is available in this particular repository. Okay, in this particular repository. I'll show you how to generate this pipeline syntax also. That's the first stage. Okay, the second stage. The next one is SonarQube analysis. Once the code is pulled to the server, it is going to perform the analysis of the code. So for that, I'm going to create an environment which is sonar-server. And the project name I'm giving. Project name is BMS, that is Book My Show. You can give any name. Since we are working with Book My Show, I'm just giving it as BMS. And project key also BMS. Again, here also you can give any name. So how it is going to perform? It is going to perform by using scanner home. Scanner home. So what is our scanner home? You can see I have configured the tool, right? Sonar tool. So that by using that SonarQube tool, it is going to perform the code quality analysis. And then it is going to give the quality gates also. Quality gates also. So here what I have done is, since the code, whatever is there with me, it is not developed by me. It was developed by someone else, and all credits to the person who has developed the Book My Show clone code. Now, what I have done is, even if the code gets failed, even if the code quality gets failed, I want to skip that one. Okay, I want to skip that one. So I have given it as false. So wait for code quality, abort pipeline, false. So even if the code quality gets failed, I want my pipeline to run. Since this code is not written by me, I have given it as false. Okay, I have given it as false. But however, the code will run successfully only. We will verify that. And SonarQube I have configured with sonar-token. That's the same name I have given it here. And then I'm going to install some dependencies. But where I'm going to install the dependencies? Here, if you see, I have a code. I have a folder that is Book My Show -app. So first I'm going to that particular directory, Book My Show -app, and then I'm going to execute ls-la command. Why I'm executing? I want to know whether package.json file is available or not. It is available, but I have just written it as an extra stage. You can see package.json file is available. If package.json file is available, okay, if package.json file is available, then it is going to execute this command. If there are any old dependencies, it is going to remove the old dependencies, and then it is going to install the latest dependencies. That is why, if you remember, sometime back, we have executed npm install command also, sudo npm install. Okay, you can see this one. So this command I have installed because I want to get the latest ones. However, I have configured the same thing in the pipeline script also. If you miss executing in the server, you should not miss out here. So that's why I have given it here. If package.json file is not available, that's what else condition. If package.json file is not available, it is going to print this message. Error, package.json not found in Book My Show app. So it is going to print that message. So make sure you have to clone this repository. Whatever the Book My Show repository that I have, which is given in the description of this video, clone the repository. Not clone, fork the repository. That's most important. If you clone it, you will may miss out some files. Some files you may miss out for sure. So fork the repository so that you don't miss out any of the files. You can fork it. Okay. So how to fork it? So if you go to Book My Show app, here you can see fork option. Okay, you can see fork option. So you can click on fork and then you can fork the repository. Right. So let us go back to the Jenkins file. And here, as I was telling, it is going to install the dependencies. And then it is going to perform the OWASP file system scan. So here we have configured OWASP with this particular ID, that is dp-check. With the same name, it is going to perform. And it is going to give us a report also in the XML format. That report name is dependency-check-report.xml. Right. And finally, it is going to perform the Trivy file system scanning. Once it is performing the Trivy file system scanning, it is going to keep all the report in the file, which is called as a trivyfs.txt. This particular file, trivyfs.txt and XML file, these two files, you will get it to your email notification. Okay, once the build is success or fail, you will get these two files to your email. We will verify that. And once this is done, then we are going to build the Docker image, and then we are going to push the Docker image to the Docker Hub. Now, how we are going to build the Docker image? By using Docker file. If you remember, I have already configured the Docker credentials. Credentials ID is Docker, tool name is also Docker. And First, it is going to build the Docker image. So how it is going to build the Docker image? It is going to build the Docker image by using a Docker file. Where is this Docker file? It is available in the Book My Show -app. Okay, Book My Show -app. If you see it here in the repository, so there is a Docker file that is available. If you go inside this one, there is a Docker file available. You can see Docker file available. I'll explain this one in some time. Okay, so it is going to create the Docker image by using this Docker file only. Let me go to the Jenkins file again. And here, you can see it is going to push the, it is going to create the Docker image by using a Docker file, right? So what is the Docker image name? Docker image name is BMS:/latest, BMS:/latest. And what is this? This is my Docker Hub username. In your case, you have to change this username. If you want to change the image name also, you can change it. But most importantly, change the username. Because if you give this username, you cannot push the Docker image to your GitHub, to your Docker Hub account. Because you have to configure your Docker Hub account. So that's why give your Docker Hub username here. Once the Docker image is built, it is going to push the image to registry. That is Docker Hub. So how it is going to push? By using this particular Docker Hub username. Which image it is going to push? It is always going to push the latest image. And finally, it is going to deploy the application into the container. That's the final stage. Okay. So if there are any existing, let's say you have built 2 times, you have built the job 2 times. So if the container is already available, you cannot create a new container again. You have to change the port number. So in that case, what I have done is I have first stopped the existing container. So this is my container name. BMS is the container name. I have first stopped the existing container. Then I have removed the existing container. And then I am going to create a new container. So Docker run -d -restart equals to always name. What is the container name? BMS. That's my container name. Port mapping. I'm going to run the application on port number 3000. Host port number, container port number. So how I am going to create this container? By using this particular Docker image. Where is this Docker image? Inside the Docker Hub, my Docker Hub. Once this is done, it is going to execute this one, Docker ps-a, so that we will be able to see whether containers are in the running state or not. And then it is going to sleep for some time so that the application will start. Okay, the application will start. And if you want to get the logs also, I have given the logs for container also as well. It will display the logs also. And finally, we are going to get the email notification. And how will you get the email notification? To this email ID. So whatever email ID you have configured in Jenkins, give that email ID to the same email ID, you are going to get it. What all you will get it? You will get the build number. Okay, you will get the build number. You will get a Trivy file system scanning text file I told you, right? That file you are going to get. Along that Trivy image text also you are going to get. Okay, Trivy image text you are also going to get. And you are also going to get the job name, build number, and build URL also. So all these things you are going to get. Okay, this is the first stage without Kubernetes. Now let me show you the Docker file also. So click on Docker file here. So I'm going to go with node 18. You can go with node 23, which is the latest one. That's up to you. So I'm just going with node 18, which is the stable version that I'm using. Okay, you can go with node 23 also. The application is running. There is no problem with that. And I'm going to move to the work directory, which is called as /app. That's a working directory name. And then I'm going to copy the package.json file and package lock.json file to the present working directory. That is what dot represents. Okay. And then I'm going to install the compatible post CSS version. That's the version that is required for this application. So we have to install npm for post CSS. And then I'm going to install the npm as well. In the Docker file also, I have given the same thing. And then I'm going to copy the entire project to the current working directory. I'm going to expose the application in port number 3000. And then I have given the node options and environment port also. And finally, it is going to start the npm application by using start command, right? So this is all your Docker file. So if you don't know how to write this Docker file and all, as I said in the beginning of the video, I have created the Docker playlist. Okay, Docker playlist in which I have explained how to write the Docker file and what are the different components that are available in the Docker file. All those things I have given it very detailed in the videos. So you can check the Docker playlist. The Docker playlist link is also available in the description of this video. You can check that one as well. Right. Once this is done, let me go to Jenkins file. Let me copy the entire script. Okay, whatever script that is there, copy this entire script. Don't copy this one without Kubernetes test. Don't copy that line. Excluding that, you copy everything and then go to the Jenkins, new item. We are creating a new job, right? So click on new item. So just to give, it has restarted. So I'll just sign in once again. Once we sign in, we are good to go and create a new job. So I'll just give the job name as a BMS-app, book my show application. And pipeline project we are going to create. Click on OK. And then let us go to pipeline. Let us go to pipeline and paste the entire pipeline. So pipeline, paste the entire pipeline. But before pasting the pipeline script, okay, before pasting the pipeline script, make sure to generate one pipeline syntax. So here I have given my own GitHub URL. In your case, you will have your own GitHub URL. So you have to generate this one. So how will you generate this one? Open pipeline syntax in a new tab. Pipeline syntax is there, right? Open pipeline syntax in a new tab. And you have forked the repository, right? You have forked the repository, right? So go to that repository and click on code. Click on code. And here, copy the repository URL, HTTPS URL. Copy it. And go to the pipeline syntax. Sample step, select it as Git and repository URL. Paste the repository URL. And code. My code is available in the main branch. If your code is available in some other branch, you can give that branch name. Currently, my code is there in the main branch. So I'll give it as a branch name as main, because that is where my code is available. And credentials, it's not required because it's a public repository. So for public repository, there is no need to give the credentials. If it's a private repository, you have to configure the credentials. Which credentials? GitHub credentials. And then click on generate pipeline script. Now, whatever the script that you are getting here, copy this entire script, go to the pipeline, and here you have to paste that one. Okay, remove this entire thing and you paste the script, whatever you have generated. I pasted it. That's done. Once this is done, click on apply, click on save. Everything is done. Now click on build now. Click on build now. Currently, you can see I don't have any builds. So let me click on build now. If we have configured everything properly, you are going to get the pipeline in a successful way. If we have made anywhere mistake, we will troubleshoot the mistake if any mistake comes. Otherwise, we can directly verify the application it is running or not. Right. So let this particular thing gets triggered. No issues with that. Now let us go to the worker nodes. I have already said that we have created the worker nodes, right? So let us verify the worker nodes. Let us verify the worker nodes. So go to the EKS cluster, and here in the compute, you can see node groups. There are currently no node groups. Just refresh it one. Refresh it. And here you can see node group is showing 1. Okay, it is showing 1. You can see nodes. So how many instances has got created? 3 instances. Let us go to the AWS console. And here currently we have only one server. Just reload it. Just reload it. And here you will see 3 worker nodes here. Total 4 instances you will see. Okay, this is the main server. And T3.medium, 3 servers you are seeing. So what are these? These are basically the worker nodes. Okay, these are basically the worker nodes, these 3. How these 3 came? Because in the command, I have given the node size as 3. That means desired size. As soon as I execute this command, what happened? 3 worker nodes has got created. Okay, 3 worker nodes has got created. So that is how you can trigger the application in the Jenkins pipeline. So let me show you that also. You can see the quality gate is also good. And first it has installed the tools, and then it has cleaned the workspace. It got the code from GitHub repository. It has performed the SonarQube analysis also in 24 seconds. And it has got the code quality gate also. It got passed. And now it is installing the dependencies. So let me go to the SonarQube. So here the SonarQube analysis is completed, right? So let me go to the SonarQube dashboard. And here go to projects. You can see on the top, there is an option called projects. So click on projects. And here we can see the project BMS, that is Book My Show. What is the status? Passed. Quality gate has got passed. So how many bugs are there? 18. And vulnerabilities, 0 vulnerabilities. Hotspots also 0%. Code smells 116. Code coverage 0%. Duplications, number of lines of code. 5,800 lines are available. Okay. Again, If you want to know how to work with SonarQube separately, I have already created one project only on SonarQube. You can refer that project by going into the DevOps playlist, which is available on my YouTube channel. So if you want to know more details about this code quality, so click on BMS, and here you will see the detailed report. You can see the 18 bugs. If you click on 18, you will see the bug report also. You'll see the bug report also. But these bugs are not a major issue, so that's not a problem here. But in real time, what we will do, we will generate the bug report and we will give this bug report to the developers. So developers will test it, and developers will rewrite the code again accordingly, and then they are going to deploy the latest code. I mean, they are going to give us the latest code. As a DevOps engineer, we have to deploy that latest code into the servers. Okay, so this is all the details about it. So if you click on security hotspot, you can see the security hotspots, measures, what kind of measures you can take. That also it is going to show you. And then code, it is going to show you the code, whatever that we have. Okay, Book My Show app, this is where the code is available. And activity, what activity you can perform. So currently there is no activity, right? So this is all good. Now, let us see the Jenkins pipeline. So you can see install dependencies is also done, OWASP file system scan. This particular stage, as I said earlier, this particular stage will take 45 minutes to 1 hour. It may change accordingly also, but remember that one, it may take more time. It may take more time. So what I'll do is I'll pause this video. But before pausing the video, I would like to explain about the Kubernetes stage. So if you go to the Jenkins file 2, here I have kept everything same. But here I have made a couple of changes, few changes. One is I have defined the environment block separately. We have SonarQube environment, we have Docker image, cluster name, and AWS region. So here we have to change the region. So I'm currently working with the US East 1, right? So I have to give that region, US East 1. So let me give the region US-East-1. US-East-1. So let me give this entire thing. And workspace, I'm going to clean the workspace, git install, it is going to done, then going to perform the SonarQube code quality analysis, quality gates, and then dependencies it is going to install, and then it is going to perform the OWASP file system scan stage, and then it is going to do the Trivi file system scan. Then again, it is going to build the Docker image, and it is going to push the Docker image to the Docker hub, and then it is going to deploy the application to the EKS cluster. Now, before executing this pipeline script, we have to execute a couple of commands. I'll let you know once the pipeline is successfully executed. I'll show you that one in some time. So first, it is going to get a STS caller identity. That means if you have successfully configured the AWS credentials, it will execute this command. Okay, it will execute this command. And then it is going to configure the kubectl. Why kubectl? For the EKS cluster. So here I have given $EKS _ cluster _ name. So what is the reason for that? Because I have already given the cluster name under environments. You can see it here. So it will take the value from here. And similarly, it is also going to take the region also from the same environment blocks. And then it is going to apply the deployment.yml file. It is going to apply the service.yml file. And we are going to get the list of pods and list of services. Now let me show you what is deployment.yml file and service.yml file consist of. Okay, let me commit the changes. Make sure to change the region here. That's most important. Okay, you have to change the region here. Okay, US-East-1. So let me click on commit changes. Right. When you fork the repository, directly you can change in the GitHub repository itself. That's not an issue. Right. Once that is done, you can see deployment.yml file. This is where our application will get deployed. So this is the version 1 and the kind is deployment. I want to do the deployment, right? So I have given kind as deployment. Metadata, that means the name of the deployment, that is BMS-app. And I am going to use labels as BMS. Replicas, I need 2 replicas. Replicas means pods, number of pods I need, 2 pods I need. And match labels, I'm going to match the labels with the selector. And template, I'm going to use the default template, that is BMS. And container. So we have created a BMS container, right? So it is going to get from it. And then it is going to get the image, BMS latest image. From where? From the Docker hub. This is my Docker hub name. In your case, you will have your own Docker hub. So replace that one also. And my application is going to run on port number 3000. That is what I have given in the Jenkins file. So the same port number, you have to give it here also. So this is the deployment.yml file. Similarly, we have one more file which is called as service.yml file. So usually in Kubernetes, we have three different services. One is called as cluster IP, the other one is node port, the other one is load balancer. So it is always recommended to work with load balancer as the service type. So I am going with the API version, kind is service. Service represents how you want to expose your application to the outsiders. So that's what service represents. And the service name is this one. How it is going to identify the service? By using the labels. And type, service type is load balancer. Target port is 80. And port is 80. Target port. My application is running on a 3000 port number. So how it is going to get? By using selector. Where we have mentioned the selector? We have mentioned the selector in the deployment.yml file. Deployment.yml file. If you want to verify further, you can see it there. You can go to deployment.yml file. You can see selector. app:/bms. Whatever name you have given here, same name you should also give it in the service.yml file. So these are the two files that are helpful in order to do the application deployment. So make sure to do all the necessary changes that are required. Right. So let us go and verify the pipeline stage. So you can see it is still happening. So what I'll do is I will pause this video, and once everything is done, then I'll come back and I'll let you know whether stage is successful or not. So currently you can see the entire pipeline has got triggered successfully, and you can see the file system scanning has taken 34 minutes, so approximately 35 minutes it has taken, and it has built the image, and then it has pushed the image to the Docker Hub, and finally it has deployed the application to the Kubernetes cluster, and mail also has been successfully sent. So let us verify one by one. So first, let us go to Docker Hub and see whether Docker image has got pushed successfully or not. So for that, let me go to the Docker Hub and let me reload the page. And here you can see the Docker Hub image, which is a BMS. That's the image that we have given, BMS latest. And you can see the image that is available in the Docker Hub also. Okay, you can see this is the image that got pushed. So you can see 1 hour ago it got pushed. So this is the image that we have pushed. And now let us access the application also. Okay, let us access the application also. So how we can access the application? We know that the application is deployed into the container, and that container is running on a port number 3000. So that is what we have mentioned in the Docker file also. Okay, if you remember in the Docker file and also in the Jenkins file, so I have given the application port number as 3000. Okay, the application port number as 3000. So you can see it here. Okay, running on port 3000, and I have mapped with the 3000 port number, and the same port number I have also given it in the Docker file as well. So if you remember in the Docker file, I have opened port number 3000 there also. So expose 3000, that's the port I have given, which I have exposed it. So you can see the port is 3000. Now what you have to do is go to the server. So the server which we need to access the application is the BMS server, the public IP of the instance. So copy the public IP address and go to a new tab. In the new tab, paste the IP address and then colon 3000, because that is where my application is running. Now, if you hit enter, you will be able to see the Book My Show application. Okay, you'll be able to see the Book My Show application. So this is the application that we have successfully deployed into the Docker container. Into the Docker container. So this is a clone of a Book My Show application. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to deploy the same application into the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, we are going to deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster. So we have created an EKS cluster, right? So into this EKS cluster, we are going to deploy the application. Okay, right. And once we deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster, we are not going to access the application using the IP address. Instead, in Kubernetes deployment.yml file and service.yml file, if you remember, I have mentioned in the service as load balancer, Kubernetes service type as load balancer. Now, load balancer will get created in the EC2 console, and then by using the load balancer URL, we are going to access the application. Okay, right. So for that, as I said already, I have created 2 Jenkins files. So in the second Jenkins file, I have given the Kubernetes stage. So this I have already explained previously, so I'm not going to explain it once again. So I hope you got the point when I was explaining about the Kubernetes cluster stage. Okay, right. But before copying this script in the Jenkins, what we have to do is we need to do a couple of configurations. Okay, we need to do a couple of configurations. So the first configuration, what we have to do is we need to verify Jenkins is running by using which user. Okay, Jenkins is running by using which user. So if you want to know Jenkins is running on which user, this is the command that we have to execute. So let me copy this command. Let me go to the mobile extension and let me paste the command so that we'll get to know whether Jenkins is running by the root user or Jenkins user. So you can see here Jenkins is running by using a Jenkins user. Okay, Jenkins is running by using Jenkins user. Now what you have to do is you have to switch to the Jenkins user. Okay, you have to switch to the Jenkins user and again you have to configure the AWS. Again, you have to configure the AWS. That's the same step I have given it here. So look for the user output. So if you see something like this in the beginning, that means you are accessing Jenkins by using a Jenkins user. That's the default one. Now let us switch to the Jenkins user. So for that, the command is sudo -su, the username. So what is the username? Jenkins is the username. Right, I have switched to the username. Now if I do who am I, you can see I am the Jenkins user. Now once you switch to the Jenkins user, again, we have to configure the AWS. So we have to configure the AWS. So what we are going to do, we are going to configure AWS by using access keys and secret keys. Remember, this step is very, very important for the application to deploy in the Kubernetes cluster. So let me copy the access key. Let me paste it here. And then let me give the secret access key also. Copy this one and let me paste it here. And region, so we are working with North Virginia region. So for that, the region code is US-East-1. So we know how to get the region code. If you click on this drop down, you will see the North Virginia region code is US East 1. So let me execute this one and output. You can give it as a JSON or you can also give it as a table. Anything can be given. So let me go with JSON. So with this, we have configured AWS with Jenkins user. Okay, we have configured AWS for Jenkins user. Now, if you want to verify whether user credentials have been successfully configured or not, we can execute AWS STS command. Okay, AWS STS command. STS means a simple token service. Okay, simple token service. And that will give you whether you have configured properly or not. If you execute this command, you should be able to see the user ID, account number, and ARN. If you are seeing this one, that means you have successfully configured the AWS credentials for Jenkins user. These steps are very, very important before we deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster. Now you need to restart the Jenkins. This is completely optional. If you want, you can do this. Otherwise, it's fine. No problem. Okay, no problem. So let us restart it. So once after restarting the Jenkins, then again we have to switch back to the Jenkins user. And then we have to execute this particular command, which is to update the kubeconfig file. Okay, which is to update the kubeconfig file. Again, here also make sure to give the cluster name properly, whatever you have given, and region also. So a region is US East 1. That's the region of North Virginia. Okay, region 1. So now let me restart Jenkins. Again, this is completely optional. It's not mandatory. It's completely optional. If you want to do it, you can do it. Otherwise, you can do that. So currently, you can see I am the Jenkins user. You can see it here. Now I am coming out of that user. Right now, if I do who am I, you can see I am the Ubuntu user. Now, what we have to do, we have to restart Jenkins. Okay, we have to restart Jenkins. So let me restart Jenkins by executing sudo systemctl restart Jenkins. So it will take a couple of seconds of time. Once we restart the Jenkins, then we have to go to the Jenkins dashboard. Okay, we have to go to the Jenkins dashboard and we have to reload this page. Okay, we have to reload this page. So let it come. So once it comes, then we will reload the page and then again we have to switch back and then we will verify. We will update the kubeconfig file. So let us do that. So the Jenkins has got restarted. So let me go here and let me reload the Jenkins in the browser also. Enter the username and the password of your Jenkins dashboard. Right. Once we do this, then again, we need to switch back to the Jenkins user. Sudo -su, the username is Jenkins. Okay, sudo -su, the username is Jenkins. Now what we have to do, we have to update the kubeconfig file. So in order to update the kubeconfig file, this is the command AWS EKS kubeconfig. Okay, kubeconfig. Right. So now it has updated the kubeconfig file. Now we are ready to build the application and to deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster. You can see the first build is deploying the application into the container, Docker container. Now let me configure it. Let me go here and then let me copy the entire script from here. So let me get that script. So go to the pipeline. So here what I'll do is, here I have already configured the URL, right? So I'll just copy this URL and then I'll go here and I'll update it here. Okay, I'll update it here. So this is the same thing which I have uploaded into the GitHub repository also. You can verify this documentation as well, right? So now let me copy this entire thing. Okay, let me copy the entire thing and make sure to do the appropriate changes. So what are those appropriate changes? One thing is you have to give the email. So let me explain that once we go here, right? So the appropriate changes are, the first one is JDK and then node thing, and then your SonarQube scanner, and then GitHub username with the image name and EKS cluster name and region. So here the region is US East 1. So let me give it as US-East-1. These are very, very important when you are also doing the deployments. And then the next ones that we have to do is a GitHub successfully configured properly, and then SonarQube. And once we do that one, the next thing that we have to look after is quality gate and install dependencies. That is also good. Privy file system scan, that is also good. And also the Docker build stage and deploy to EKS cluster. Okay, deploy to EKS cluster. So here we don't have to change any of things. Let it be as it is, so that the deployment.yml file and service.yml file will get executed. And finally, our application will get deployed into the Kubernetes cluster. So let me click on apply and let me click on save. Right. So now let us trigger the pipeline. Let us trigger the pipeline. So this will be my second pipeline. So click on build now, and you can see the second pipeline has got triggered successfully. So again, it will take some time for the application to be deployed into the Kubernetes cluster. Now, meanwhile, what we will do is we are also going to work with the application with respect to monitoring of the application by using Prometheus and Grafana. So what I'll do is I'll create a new instance for that. Okay, I'll create a new instance for that. So let me click on launch instances. And this instance, I'm going to name it as monitoring server, because we need to monitor our application, right? So I'm going to keep it as a monitoring server. Okay, monitoring server. So that's the name I'm giving. So just for our understanding. And here also, I'll not be going with t2.micro. Instead, t2.medium is fine. You don't have to go with t2.micro, but t2.medium is fine. But again, here I'm selecting Ubuntu. And for monitoring purpose, what I'll do is I'll not go with the latest one, because it may not be compatible with the Prometheus and Grafana. It is compatible, but we might face some issues. So just to be ourselves on the safe side, I'll go with the 22.04 version. Okay, 22.04 version. So let me copy this one. Let me select the AMI as 22.04. And as I said earlier, instance ID, okay, instance type, sorry, not in ID, instance type. I'm going to select it as t2.medium. t2.medium. So t2.large, it's not required because we are just going to work with Prometheus and Grafana only. No need to go with t2.large. Let us go with t2.medium. So let me click on confirm changes. And once we do that, then we will go and work with the instance. Okay. So the same documentation related to the monitoring part also I have given very clearly. So you can verify that monitoring part in the documentation as well. So let me show you that part of the documentation also in the document. So let me just show you that part also. Right. So here you can see monitoring the application. So I'm going to go with 22.04 and t2.medium as the instance. So I'll name the instance as a monitoring server. I'll name the instance as monitoring server. So let me click on confirm changes. And here I'll be going with t2.medium. So I'll just type medium here and then I'll select t2.medium. And then key pair, I'm going to select the same key pair, which is Kastro key pair. That's the key pair that I have created. And then the network settings, I'm going to go with the new network, new security group. Let us go with the new one itself. And then configure storage is 28 GB I'll be going. And number of instances, I need only one instance. In the same instance, I will install Prometheus and I'll also install Grafana as well. Okay, Grafana as well, right. So once we successfully launch the instance, we will connect to this monitoring server and then we will configure all the required things that are required for the application monitoring. Okay, that are required for the application monitoring, right? So let us do that. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to connect it to the server, that is monitoring server. So let me just reload it and let us get the instance. So we have got the monitoring server, which is in the running state. Okay, you can see the running state, and this is the monitoring server. Copy the public IP address of the server. And then by using MobaXterm, I'm going to connect it to this server. So go to session and SSH, remote host, specify username. Username is Ubuntu because we have launched Ubuntu instance. Advanced SSH, use private key, click on the file icon, and then select the PEM file that we have used. So this is the PEM file, open, and then click on OK. Right. So with this, we have successfully connected to the monitoring server as well. So what I'll do is I'll just rename this tab so that you'll get an idea in which server what commands I'm executing. So I'll just rename it to monitoring server. Okay, you can see the tab name here. And this tab is, I'll just keep it as a BMS server. Okay, BMS server, right? So everything I'm going to do it in the monitoring server only, not in the BMS server, right? Let me clear the screen. So first thing is we have to update it, sudo apt update. So let me execute that one. And once we do that one, then we are going to add the Prometheus user. So let us create a dedicated Linux user. Sometimes we call that user as a system. Okay, that account we are going to create it for Prometheus user. Right. So let me copy this command so that we are going to add the user called Prometheus. Okay, right. So let me execute that command here. So Prometheus user has got added. And then what we are going to do is we are going to work with downloading the Prometheus. So the detailed explanation of each and everything of the above command also I have given. So I hope you all know this one. But anyway, I have provided the documentation. You can verify the documentation when you are practicing. Next thing is we are going to download the Prometheus in the form of a tar.zz file. Okay, tar file we are going to download. And once we get the tar file, we are going to extract the tar file. So if you do ls, you can see Prometheus tar file is there. Now let us extract the tar file. So in order to extract the tar file, the command is a tar space -xvf and then file name. The tar file is getting extracted. If you do ls, you can see the extracted directory is available. Now once that is there, then we are going to create a new directory in the /data/etc path. The directory name is Prometheus. The directory name is Prometheus. Now let us go inside that directory. Okay, let us go inside the directory. So cd space this one, the directory name. Okay, cd space the directory name. So let me press enter. And now if you do pwd, I am there inside the directory, which is called as Prometheus directory. Right. Once we do this one, then we are going to move the Prometheus binary file and the prompt tool to the /user/local/bin path. So what is a prompt tool? Prompt tool is something which is used to check the configuration files and Prometheus rules. So that's why we use prompt tool. So that is what I am doing here. I am just moving both Prometheus and prompt tool to this default location, which is recommended in the real-time scenarios. And then I'm also going to move the libraries to the Prometheus configuration directory. So let me paste that one also. That also is done. And then I'm going to move the Prometheus configuration file. So that configuration file name is prometheus.yml. Prometheus.yml. That's the configuration file. And then I'm going to set the ownership for the Prometheus configuration file. Okay, Prometheus configuration file and also the Prometheus directory as well. So that's what I'm going to do this. I have changed the ownership here. Okay, I have changed the ownership. Now, if you want to delete the archive and the Prometheus tar.zz file, you can just go to root path and then you can remove this one. Okay, you can remove this one if you don't want it. So let me do cd, and if I do ls, I want to remove this one. I don't want this tar file. So you can execute rm command for that. Okay, rm space -rf, that is force remove. Right. Now if I do ls, you can see there is no tar file, there is only Prometheus directory, which is an extracted file. And if you want to check the version of the Prometheus, you can just execute this command, that is Prometheus --version. The latest version has got installed, which is 2.47.1. That's the latest version. So if you want to see whether Prometheus is working properly or not, you can execute a command called Prometheus --help. That will show you the commands that are required. But anyway, we are not going to work with these commands. So just to verify or just to cross check whether Prometheus is working good or not. right? So now what we will do is we are going to use a system D. Okay, we are going to use a system D, and this system D, which is a system and a service manager for a Linux operating system. So for that, what we need to do is we need to create a system D unit configuration file. So that unit configuration file is available in the path of system D system. The file name is prometheus.service. Prometheus.service. In this file, we are going to configure the Prometheus related things. Okay, right. So let me go to the insert mode and let me paste this entire thing. Okay, let me paste this entire thing. This is for Prometheus. Okay, this is for Prometheus. So let me copy this entire one and let me paste it. This is for Prometheus configuration. Don't think what is this. This is related to Prometheus configuration. So let me press :WQ. Right. Once that is done, let us enable the Prometheus. Okay, let us enable the Prometheus and then let us start the Prometheus, and after which we will check the status of the Prometheus as well. Okay, sudo systemctl status Prometheus. So let me execute this command also. So you can see Prometheus is active and running. Right. So with this, we have successfully worked with Prometheus. Now, by default, Prometheus will work on port number 9090. Port number 9090. So what we have to do, we have to go to the monitoring server, go to security, and security group link we will have, right? So click on the security group link, and here in the inbound rules, we have to open port number 9090. Port number 9090, I'll give it as anywhere, and then click on save rules. Now copy the IP address of the Prometheus server. So go to details, copy the IP address, and then go to a new tab, paste it, and 9090. That's the default port number of Prometheus. Okay, default port number of Prometheus. So you can see Prometheus is going to get loaded. You can see Prometheus is there. Okay, you can see Prometheus is there. Right. So now click on status. Okay, click on status, and you will see the different options here. Now we need to go for targets here. What are our targets? Our targets are Jenkins. Our targets is Jenkins because our application is running on the Jenkins server. So we have to monitor the Jenkins server basically. So if you want to go with the Prometheus metrics, so you can just open this in a new tab and you will see the metrics that are going to come up. Okay, currently there are no metrics, so that is why it is not showing anything, but it will show the metrics once after we monitor it. Okay, once after we monitor it. So that is the same step which I have given. So if it doesn't work, by any chance, if it doesn't work, in the place of HTTP, you can give it as HTTPS also. So sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not work. So please wait for that. Okay, if it doesn't work, in the place of HTTPS, you remove the S and then give it HTTP only. Right. Currently for me, HTTP itself is working. You can see that. Right. And then click on status drop down, click on targets. You can see Prometheus one by one up. That means Prometheus is up and running. And here what will happen? The metrics will get scraped every 5 minutes. That's the default one. Okay, every 5 minutes, the metrics will get scraped. 15 seconds, not 5 minutes. Now what we will do is we are going to install the node exporter. We are going to install the node exporter. This is something that is used to work with node exporter configuration. So let me go to the root path. So currently, let me verify the path. You can see /home/Ubuntu path. So in this path, we are going to create a system for node exporter. And then we are going to download the node exporter. Okay, this is for worker node configurations. So let me paste that one. We are going to add a new user, and then we are going to download the node exporter in the form of tar.zz file. In the form of tar.zz file. Now, if you see here, if I do ls, you can see the tar.zz file is there, which is for node exporter. Now, what we have to do, we have to extract the tar file. This is the command to extract the tar file. So let me extract the tar file also. Right, I have extracted, and if you do ls, you can see the extracted directory as well. Okay, extracted directory. Now, let us move the directory to /user/local/bin. I'm just moving that particular directory. And then if you want to remove the node exporter tar file, you can just execute this one, rm-rf. That's also done. Then you can verify whether node exporter is working properly or not. So to check the version of the node exporter -version. So you can see the version that is available. Okay, node exporter version. Okay, node exporter is developed by using Go programming language. Okay, remember that also. Right. So now let us create a systemd unit configuration file for the node exporter. So this is basically the configuration file where we are going to give some inputs here. Okay, give some inputs here. Those inputs are description is node exporter, and I want the network targets to be online, and before and after I want the network targets to be online, and start limit interval and start limit burst, and couple of other configurations which are for this. Now let me copy this entire thing which are helpful for the node exporter service file. So let me paste it here and then press escape :WQ. Once this is done, then we can enable the node exporter, and then we can start the node exporter also, so that node exporter will also be in the running state. Right. So once this is done, you can also cross check whether status of the node exporter is good or not. So let me execute this command also to check the status of node exporter. So you can see active and running. That means a node exporter is in the running state. Let me come out of it, press Ctrl C for that to come out of it. Right. Once we do this one, then we are going to configure the Prometheus plugin integration also. Okay, Prometheus plugin. If you remember in the Jenkins, when I'm installing the plugins, I have installed the Prometheus plugin also. Prometheus plugin also. Now let us integrate Jenkins with Prometheus to monitor the CI/CD pipeline. So for that, what we have to do is, to do that configuration, we need to modify a file which is called as prometheus.yml file. Okay, which is called as prometheus.yml file. So let me get that file. So the file will be available in the path of /etc/Prometheus directory. So let me copy this path and let me execute it here. And if you do ls, you can see prometheus.yml file. This file we have to edit it. Okay, this file we have to edit it. But remember, that file you have to edit by using the root permissions only. Directly you cannot edit. Okay, directly you cannot edit. Now here, what we have to do is, you will see the content which is related to Prometheus job. Okay, let me show you that. If you scroll down further, you will see the job name as Prometheus. Now here we need to configure that one. Okay, we need to configure the Jenkins here. So let me go to the insert mode and then let me press enter here. Okay, come down and then let me give it here. Now here I need to give the monitoring server IP address and Jenkins server IP address also, because we need to tell to Prometheus, right, how to get the data, from where it will get the data, from Jenkins only. So to where it is going to come. So that's my monitoring server. So I'll just edit it here itself. So this is monitoring server IP address. So let me get the monitoring server IP address also. So this is the monitoring server IP address. So don't remove this 9100. That's not required. Just give the monitoring server IP address. And here Jenkins server IP address. What is my Jenkins server? This is BMS server. So copy the public IP address and then paste it here. Okay, paste it here. And then Jenkins port. So my Jenkins is running on 8080. If you have changed the Jenkins port number, you have to give that port number accordingly. Okay, you have to give that port number accordingly. Right. So let me get this entire thing and let me paste the entire thing here. Okay, make sure the indentation should be properly given. So the job name is node exporter, and node exporter I have configured with Prometheus server, and the job name is Jenkins, and that I have configured with Jenkins server. This is my Jenkins server IP address. Right. So let me press escape :WQ. So with this, we have configured the Jenkins and monitoring server in the prometheus.yml file. Now what we have to do is, we have to work with one IP address, one port number. So let us do that. So monitoring server, we are going to work with that one. Let us check the validity of the configuration file. Whatever we have configured, whether it is good or bad, that we have to verify. So once you execute this command, you will see success. If you don't see success, that means you made some mistake in the prometheus.yml file. So make sure of that one also. So if you follow the documentation as it is, you will not face any problem. But once again, when you are working without, you can check that. Now let us restart the Prometheus by using reload command here. Okay, right. And now let us access the Prometheus in the browser. So how will you access? Go to the Prometheus, which is already there. Okay, currently you can see our targets are only one by one. Now if you reload, you will see the Jenkins as also as the target. And along with that, node exporter also is the target. Now Jenkins is up and running. You can see one by one up, that is good. but node exporter is not running. Okay, node exporter is not running. The reason is node exporter will run on port number 9100. Okay, node exporter will run on port number 9100. So let us open that port number 9100 for the monitoring server, not for the BMS server, for the monitoring server. Okay, select the monitoring server, go to security. In the security, click on security group link. And here we have to edit inbound rules, and port number is 9100. So click on add rule and custom TCP. The port number is 9100. Source anywhere IPv4, save rules. Once we open the port number 9100, just go to the Prometheus browser and reload it. Once when you reload, you will see this also one by one up. So let me do that also. So you can just reload it. Currently node exporter is 0 by 1. Since we have opened port number 9100, you can see one by one up. That means port number, node exporter is also running. So if you want to see the details, you can click on show more and you can go to this particular link. You will get the details about this one, the metric scraping and all those parts. Okay, but however, we will use Grafana for that also. Okay, Grafana for that, right? So this is done. Now the next thing that we have to do is we need to install Grafana. We need to install Grafana, right? So currently you can see I'm there in /etc/Prometheus path. So let us execute the commands in the same path. Otherwise, you can come to the root directory and you can execute also. That's not an issue. So let me first update it. Since we are installing a new tool, let me just update it. That's something which is recommended. After that, let me install the properties. Okay, transport properties file. So let me install that one. Right, that is also being done. Now, once that is done, then we can switch to the root user, and then we have to add the GPG key for Grafana. Okay, GPG key for Grafana. Right. So you can just do CD, you'll be in the root user. You can be /home/Ubuntu. Now let me execute the command, which is to add the GPG key. So you can see OK. If you see OK, that means you have successfully added. Forget about this warning. This is not an issue. You should see OK. Only then you can say you have successfully executed the command. Now let us add the Grafana repository for that. Now, in order to add that, this is the command. Again, all these commands I have got it from the official documentation of Prometheus and Grafana. So don't think these commands you don't have to remember in the real-time scenarios. We have to verify the official documentation only. Now let us install the Grafana, and before that, let us just update the thing. So sudo apt-get update, and once that is done, then we are going to install Grafana. So sudo apt-get install -y Grafana. That's the command to install Grafana. You can see Grafana is also getting installed. Once Grafana is installed, then we will just enable the Grafana server, and then we will start it, and then we will check the status of the Grafana server. Grafana. Right. Once we get the Grafana dashboard, then we have to do some configurations there also. Right. So I'm just enabling it, and then I'm going to start the Grafana server. So let me start it. And then I'm going to check the status of the Grafana server also. If you check the status, it should show active and running. You can see that here, active and running. That means our Grafana is active and running. Okay, our Grafana is active and running. So to come out of it, just press Ctrl+C in your keyboard. Right, that's done. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to access the Grafana. And by default, Grafana is going to run on port number 3000. Port number 3000. So let me go to the monitoring server first, and let me open port number 3000 here. So click on add rule, custom TCP, and port number is 3000. Source is anywhere IPv4. Click on save rules. Now get the IP address, the public IP address of the Grafana server. That is monitoring server, and then paste it, and the port number is 3000. Port number is 3000. Let me press enter. Now we will be able to access the Grafana dashboard also. But again, before accessing directly the Grafana dashboard, we have to create the credentials. We have to first log in, and then we have to create the credentials. So let us do that. By default, the Grafana username is admin, and password is also admin. Okay, the default ID and default password is admin. So let us do that also. So let it come. Yeah, you can see it here. The username is admin, password is also admin. Click on login. Now, once that is done, if you want, you can set up a new password. Otherwise, you can click on skip. But in real time, it is always recommended to go with creation of new password. But for time being, let us skip it. It's not a mandatory thing. Okay, that doesn't make any difference except the monitoring part, I mean, except the login part, right? So now we can see the Grafana here. We can see the Grafana. Now what we will do is we'll add the data sources here. Okay, we'll add the data sources. We have to add a couple of dashboards here. One is Prometheus related dashboard, and the second one is a Jenkins related dashboard. So let me click on data sources here. Let me click on data sources here. Now we have to import the already available dashboards. You have to import the already available dashboards. So how will you import? You can see a plus icon here on the top right side. Click on that. And here you can see import dashboard. Import dashboard. So click on that. Before that, let me show you the same steps here also. So click on data sources, select Prometheus. Okay, select Prometheus. This is the one. Select Prometheus. And once we select the Prometheus, then make sure you have enabled the toggle bar. So there will be a toggle bar here. You can see it here. Toggle bar, and then scroll down, and here we have to give the Prometheus URL, Prometheus server URL. You can see clearly it is showing here. So let me give the Prometheus server URL. So let me copy this one. This is the Prometheus server URL. That's basically the server URL of this one, which is a monitoring server. Okay, let me give the entire one. So HTTP also I'll give it. I'll just go here and I'll paste it here. Make sure to remove the slash in the end. Don't keep that one. And once that is done, scroll down, and here click on save and test. So let me show you the same thing here. So enable default toggle bar, connection, paste the Prometheus URL, remove slash at the end. That's most important again. And then scroll down and click on save and test. That is what we have done. So click on save and test. So once you've perfectly done that, then you will see this successfully queried the Prometheus API. So now Grafana will be able to access the Prometheus. Okay, Grafana will be able to access the Prometheus because all the data to the Grafana will be coming from the Prometheus only. Will be coming from the Prometheus only. So that is why we are configuring Prometheus first in the Grafana, right? So once that is done, the next thing that we have to do is we have to add the dashboards. We have to add the dashboards. So two dashboards we have to add. The first one is for Prometheus, and the second one is for Jenkins. Okay, first one is for Prometheus, and the second one is for Jenkins. So typically when I say Prometheus, it's basically the node exporter dashboard. Okay, node exporter dashboard. Now, how will you do that? Go to the Jenkins, go to here and then click on here, the plus icon, and then import dashboard. And here we have to give the dashboard URL or dashboard ID. So how will you get that? For that, I have given a link in the in the documentation. You can just copy this link and go to a new tab. Okay, go to a new tab, execute that link, and you will see the default node exporter dashboard. Node exporter dashboard. This is how the dashboard will look like. Now, the same dashboard, I have to get it into my Grafana also. How will you do that? For that, if you scroll down, here you can see an option called copy ID to clipboard. So just click on this one and then go here and then paste it here. Click on load so that the node exporter dashboard will get loaded. And again, if you scroll down here, Prometheus is there, right? Click on this one. Select Prometheus, and then click on import. Now we have successfully imported the node exporter dashboard also. You can see the node exporter is showing the details of it. So how much CPU we are using, what is the system load, what is the RAM that is used, the percentage of RAM, all the details. So you can see the basic CPU, memory, net details, and disk details, and all those things you are able to see. So if you want to see other details also, you can click on this one. You can expand this one, and you can see the details of it. Okay, you can see the details of it. So like this, you can do the monitoring part. But again, we are monitoring only the node exporter. So let us also monitor the Jenkins as well. So again, to work with Jenkins also, again, click on this drop down plus icon and then import dashboard. So to get the Jenkins dashboard, predefined dashboard, again, I have given one link in the documentation. Just copy this link, and then go to a new tab. And in the new tab, just paste the link, which is for Jenkins dashboard. You can see Jenkins performance and health overview. So this is how our Jenkins dashboard will look like. Now for that, just copy the ID to clipboard, go to Grafana, and here paste the ID, click on load. Now scroll down, and here we have to select the source as Prometheus, and then click on import. So with this, we have successfully imported the Jenkins dashboard and Prometheus dashboard. So you can see the details of the job execution status also. So you can see So executor free, 2 jobs are there. Successfully, how many jobs we have built? 1 job we have built. That is for Docker container. I think the second job is still running. So that is why it is showing only 1. Okay. Have I aborted any jobs? No. That means have I cancelled any jobs? No. And unstable jobs, it is showing nothing. And failed jobs, none. So far, there are no jobs that got failed. So like this, you can see the details of this. So you can also change the metrics also. So if you want to know the details every 5 minutes, also you can do this. So if you click this one, every 5 minutes, this dashboard will automatically get updated. Okay, this dashboard will automatically get updated. Okay, so like this, we can do the monitoring part. So this is about the monitoring part. So now, if you want to see the dashboards, so click on the dashboards. So you can see the Jenkins dashboard and you can see the node exported dashboard. So just click on this one so that you will see that particular dashboard, node exported dashboard. And again, go to dashboards and go to Jenkins. And here you will see the Jenkins related dashboard. So this is how you can monitor the application that is running in the Kubernetes cluster using Prometheus and Grafana. So how the data is coming to the Grafana? It is because of the Prometheus. How Prometheus is getting that data? By using the EKS cluster that we have created. We have done some configurations, right? So by using those configurations, we are getting the details, right? So now the last part of this video is, let us go and verify whether Jenkins job status is built or not. You can see the second build. The second build is also successful. You can see it has successfully deployed the application to the EKS cluster also. So now what we have to do is we have to check the application using what? Not by using public IP. So by using public IP of the instance, we are accessing the application. That is good, but not with this one. What I have to do? I have to access the application using a load balancer URL. Now, why we have worked with load balancer? Because in real time, we cannot give the IP address to the end users. Let's say you want to access Book My Show application. So are you accessing www.bookmyshow.com or are you accessing by entering any IP address? So we are entering by using www.bookmyshow.com. So here we are accessing the application using the IP address of the instance. But again, this IP address, if the server gets restarted, again a new IP address will get created. So depending on the IP address is not a recommended approach in the real-time scenarios. So for that reason, what we have done in the Kubernetes cluster, I have given, okay, if you remember the GitHub thing, and if you remember the service.yml file, I have given the service type as load balancer. This load balancer URL will never change. Okay, it will not change until or unless you delete the load balancer. So let me go here. But before that, let us check whether load balancer got created or not. Go to the EC2 console. And here in the left pane, you can see load balancers. Click on load balancers. And here you will see a load balancer which gets created. Okay, that is our load balancer which got created because of the service.yml file. You can see this is the load balancer name. Okay, this is the load balancer. Now, are we going to access the application by using this load balancer URL? No, not by using this load balancer URL. Instead, we will execute a command in the mobile XM, which is, let me clear the screen, kubectl get nodes. You will see the nodes, sorry, not here, in the BMS server. So let me clear the screen. So kubectl get nodes. You can see 3 nodes will be available. Now, if you want to get the load balancer URL, the command is kubectl get svc, that is service. We are using service type as load balancer, right? So you are going to get the load balancer URL. You can see this is our load balancer URL. If I want, I will just zoom in a little bit so that we can see the entire thing in the same line. Right. You can see this is my load balancer URL. Now, by using this load balancer URL, we are going to access the application. Okay, we are going to access the application. So let me copy this URL. Let me paste it in the browser in a new tab. So I'll just remove this one and I'll paste it here. Now click enter. Whatever application that we were able to access using the IP address, the same application we should be able to access by using the load balancer URL also. Only then you can say you have successfully deployed the application to the Kubernetes cluster. You can see I'm accessing the application using a load balancer URL. So I'm also accessing the application using the IP address of the server also, that is BMS server. So both we are able to see. This is load balancer and this is by public IP of the BMS server. So this is how you can deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster. Again, here also one more thing that we have to remember is we cannot also give the load balancer URL to the customers, to the end users. So we have to give domain name, right? www.bookmyshow.com. Some domain we have to give. Now what you can do is you can map this domain. You can map this domain to the, you can map this the load balancer URL to the domain that you have purchased. Let's say if you have purchased a domain in the Route 53, in AWS, we have a service called Route 53. You can map that domain also by using Route 53 service. But make sure you should have purchased the domain and you should have the hosted zone also. You should have a hosted zone also. So currently I have one hosted zone, but anyway, that hosted zone has got expired. So I'll show you how to work with this one. So if you have already got any hosted zone, so just click on the hosted zone here. Okay, click on the hosted zone. And here I'll show you how to configure the same application using the hosted zone. That is my custom URL. So you can see this is my domain that I have purchased. But again, this domain has got expired anyway. So now what I'll do is open the domain that we have purchased. So this is my domain. You must have purchased with different name. So click on the hosted zone. And here we have to create a record. Okay, create a record, Route 53 record. Okay, let me delete the existing one. I'll not use this one. Let me delete the record and let me delete the existing one. It's not required. So by default, whenever you purchase a hosted zone, you will get two records. One is NS record, that is namespace record, and the other one is SOA record. So don't delete these ones, it's not required. So now let us create a new record. So click on create record, and here you can give domain some name. Let's say I'll give some name as Kastro. Any name you can give, any name you can give. And then record type, I'll go with a record because that is something which is going to access the application using a IPv4 address. And here, how I want to divert the traffic by using load balancer URL. So enable alias, and route traffic to how I want to route the traffic. So choose the endpoint. What is my endpoint? Load balancer is my endpoint. So alias to application and classic load balancer. Select this one. And then in which region I have my load balancer? North Virginia. So give US East 1. US East 1. So let me give the region code US-East-1. That is my region code. And then select the load balancer. We have created a load balancer, right? So select the load balancer. This is the same load balancer which is there in the load balancer's console also. Okay, load balancer console also. You can see that. The same URL, you can see it here as well. So it is starting with A57CA0. So let us verify that. A57, you can see it here. A57CA0. Right. Select the load balancer URL and routing policy. We can go with simple routing policy. And if you want to enable the target health checks also, you can enable it. If you disable also, that is not a major issue here. So let us click on create record. Now, since we have created the record, we can now access the application using the hosted zone URL. So how we want to access the application? By using this particular domain. So let me copy this one and let me paste it in the browser and then click enter. But as I said earlier, this is not something that is going to work because the hosted zone has got expired. But if you have the valid hosted zone, which is in the running state, you can still do the same thing and you can access the application here. So this is how you can map a custom domain to your application. As well. So this is how you can deploy the application into the Docker container and also into the Kubernetes cluster. So as I said earlier, so this is the application that is running in the server, and this is the application, the same application which is running in the Kubernetes cluster where the load balancer is able to access the application. Now, this is the complete end-to-end project where we are seeing how to deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster by using DevSecOps approach. So we have used different stages in this particular project, and we have been working with multiple configurations and all those parts. Remember, once after you complete everything, make sure to delete the cluster. So again, you cannot delete the cluster directly. Instead, what you have to do is first you have to delete the node group. And once after you delete the node group, then you have to delete the cluster. So if you want to delete the node group, go to compute. And here you can see the node group. Select the node group and then click on delete and then confirm it so that the node group will get deleted. Once after node group gets deleted, then you can delete the cluster. So deleting the node group will take some time. So you have to wait for 10 to 15 minutes again here to delete the node group. And once that is done, then you can delete the cluster also. And once you delete the cluster also, then make sure to delete all the EC2 instances, whatever that are there. So the instances which are attached to the cluster, they will get automatically deleted when you delete the node group. But there are two servers that are available. One is monitoring server and the other one is BMS server. So make sure to delete both those servers to avoid the charges also. So that is all about this particular video. So we have seen how to deploy the Book My Show clone application into the Docker container and also into the Kubernetes cluster. So one final request before we close this particular thing is I would like to look into your views on the video, and also if it would be better if you can do this video, I mean, if you can do this project and then you can tag me on LinkedIn in a LinkedIn post by saying that you have successfully deployed the application, so that it will be a boost for me and also others, maybe in your friend circle who are working on DevOps or who are trying to get into DevOps. So for them, it might be helpful also. So please consider doing this one. That's one kind request from my end to you all. Thank you all. See you in the next video.